The Pleasant Valley School District Board of Education meeting to order. If you could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and then please stay standing for a moment of silence. And please keep our Pleasant Valley family in your thoughts and prayers. Unfortunately, we lost a staff member over a week ago at the middle school, so please keep her family in your thoughts and prayers. And Mrs. Surface, please keep her family in your thoughts and prayers this evening too. Her family's going through some things. So Bernie, could you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Again, I'd like to welcome everyone that's with us this evening, and if we could have roll call, please.
Here.
Here.
Michael Gower,
Here.
John Division,
Here.
Present.
Present.
Wayne Service, Danny Walters,
Here.
Melanie Zell.
Here. Thank you. I'd like to let everyone know this evening that we did have an executive session, of course, held today, February the 13th of 2025, immediately prior to the regularly scheduled meeting for purposes of personnel matters, including but not limited to performance and or discipline, negotiations, and legal issues. This evening, we do have a presentation from Monroe Career and Technical Institute by our director and their business manager, Dr. Verga. I said it. How about that? And Mr. Brook is with us this evening.
All right, thank you for having us tonight. I did promise Ms. Cresby this will be quick in
7 minutes.
7 minutes.
7 minutes.
Today cost too much. So first and foremost, I want to thank every single person in this room. You guys will see in a little bit, and it seems like every time I come here, the enrollment at MCTI from Pleasant Valley is just as strong as it's ever been, and that's thanks to the school board and your administration who's sitting to my right. You guys just keep doing the good work. So I thank you for that. So to make this quick, I'm going to get right into it. I share this slide every time I present the budget to every school board because we are a little unique. As you guys know, we're not a taxing entity. We are funded primarily through the 4 districts in Monroe County, Pleasant Valley, obviously, Pocono Mountain, Stroudsburg, and East Stroudsburg. And how it works, it's a 4-year rolling average of ADMs, which is essentially a kind of a fancy term for enrollment. That percentage of whatever that number is, that's the percentage of the operating budget that the school district will be responsible for. So you'll see Pleasant Valley is a little over 21%. Please don't be alarmed by that red arrow. It doesn't mean that your enrollment is super strong, which you'll see in a second. It just means your budget share went down a little bit. So overall, that's kind of the number that you guys will be looking at. At the conclusion, as you'll see, it's ultimately really good news for the district and all of our districts because of the increase in vocational subsidy that Harrisburg keeps putting in their current deck yet. So first enrollment, very important. So as everybody in this room knows, Monroe County as a whole in the last 10 years, school district enrollment has gone down. Ours just keeps climbing. So this year we're about just under 1,200 students. Good news and bad news. The good news, the demand is so high that we had, at the start of the year, we had a wait list of over 500 students trying to get to MCTI. We ended right now with about 340 kids who did not get in. That's bad news. So Obviously, we're in the middle of our enrollment period right now. We actually just met with Pleasant Valley last week, and once again, you guys took every one of your slots and some. Of course, that makes for difficult phone calls with parents and guidance counselors who are fighting for their children. So the demand is as high as ever. Overall, it's about 27% increase in 10 years, about 18% increase in the last 5. So we just continue to grow as a school. I try to show this to give you some perspective. This percentage, if you look at all the students in Monroe County grades 10 through 12, this is the percentage who attend MCTI. State average, depending on who you ask, is between 10 and 12%. We're over 17% at MCTI, so overall we do very well. And as you guys will see in a second, Pleasant Valley is by far the largest percentage of any school. So you guys, if you look at this, if you look at your high school 10 through 12 graders, 24% of them come to MCTI. So that is by far and away the highest in the county. It has historically been, but you guys continue to just grow. And I will say that the kids you send us are excellent. And for those who attended Skills USA, our district competition, a lot of the Skills from PD did very well. So you'll see across the board, every school district is doing well, but I would be proud of that chart if I was a community member at Pleasant Valley. So right to the numbers. So our budget isn't overly exciting this year. That's why it's pretty quick. So our increase is about a 3.92% increase. So it's an even $400,000. And where that comes from is a couple things. One is the addition. I know you guys have been getting your updates on the addition we're putting on, which is going very well. That alone is going to add some cost. So maintenance and custodial costs, about 17,000 square feet. We're going to be adding a second auto tech program, which is a staff member, of course. So that alone is going to increase some costs. Also, it's very important that you know that contract increases impact MCTI directly. Our teachers don't negotiate salary. It's a weighted average of 4 districts. So if a school district increases salary, that increases our contractual. So that was a big part of it. East Stroudsburg, as you guys know, had an increase last year, and that's where ours came from. So that's pretty much where the additional costs come from. Savings, as I always say, it seems like every year we're losing somebody who's retiring, and that's not changing. We have some people who've been here for 30 years who are retiring this year, which is a cost savings, but I wouldn't trade that for what they've given to the school. So that's where we came in at, but I will tell you that number, just keep in mind, when I talked about the vocational subsidy, is actually much lower for Pleasant Valley, and actually all the schools, when I explain what Harrisburg has done in the last 5 years or so. So this is the breakdown for each school. So Pleasant Valley, you guys are the second one down. So about 3.3% increase. That's about around up to $64,000. You'll notice the green portion is capital. I will briefly talk about our capital fund, which is very healthy right now, which is great, including the addition. But we're not asking for any capital money. And actually, when we get to our excess revenue, which you guys usually get the month after, we don't anticipate asking for that either. So you'll be getting that back as well. So all good news coming back. But that is the dollar amount to their operating budget that you guys are, your increase shows. But keep in mind what I said, and I'll try to explain this as best I can without boring you guys too long and coming under that 7-minute mark. So vocational subsidy. Vocational subsidy is money that comes from the state. So actually the governor just presented his state budget, and you probably noticed he talked about Career Tech Ed, and there is an increase there. Generally, the increase that he's talking about is twofold. One is in grants, which is where we get a lot of our equipment, and the second one is something called vocational subsidy. Depending on what Career Tech school you talk about, some schools keep that vocational subsidy at the CTC center, where others send it back to the school districts. MCTI historically has sent the vocational subsidy back to the school districts. That's what we have always done. The good news is there has been a very large increase in vocational subsidy in the last 5 years. So this year alone, if you look at Pleasant Valley, again, second line, if you look at that grayish, it's kind of hard to see on the screen, but about $457,000 is expected in vocational subsidies coming back to PV. So what that ultimately means, if you look at the net cost for what you're sending to MCTI, it's actually a savings of about $27,000. When you take that and go over the next 5 years, or the last 5 years, I should say, this is the net cost, school district net cost, all four schools in the county. This is what it looked like 5 years ago compared to now. And really what's happening is what our budget increase is lagging behind vocational subsidy increase, which is good for school districts, good for everybody. So ultimately what you're seeing is an actual decrease in cost for the school districts and MTJ. Pleasant Valley is about $180,000 in the last 5 years, where actually the cost decreased. So even though your enrollment's going up, the cost is decreasing. Somebody may ask, why don't we budget that increase? And as everybody in this room knows, it's hard to budget off of Harrisburg's budget. I would hate to put us in that position where we budget off that increase and next year it's flat and then you're neutral.
Yeah.
So right now, just take it as a win. And I will say that you guys and all the other 3 districts are providing what we need. So please keep that in mind, but that is good news. Capital, I mean, you guys I know get a monthly update on this, so I'm not gonna go crazy on it, but we are very proud of the addition. It is going very well. It is on schedule. It should be done in June. The windows, those front windows actually just went in. So it's starting to come together. Next September, we will have our opening, which we plan on putting every school board member there along with all our OAC members. So it is going very well, but without pouring you so much on that, some of the other capital stuff that is very important that you guys see. So this is our capital reserve, what we have in capital money. You guys, for those of you who've been around long, you probably remember me coming here 5 years ago, 6 years ago, kind of begging for money, for lack of better terms, because we had no funds in our capital. And we fixed that. With your help, we made some changes to how we budget. Mr. Burke, who's saying all the words behind me, has done an excellent job investing money for us. So where we're at, that bottom green number, after the addition is done, we still are looking at about $2.8 million in our capital reserve, which is a school for our size, that is tremendous. And remember, before that, we had nothing. So we had no funding mechanism in the past for capital. Sue was very happy to hear when I brought it up. I had plans to spend that money already. So some things we're looking at doing, we have some upgrades to the building we have to do, electrical service. But the more exciting stuff is we're trying to expand the school as best we can without as much cost. So I mentioned the second auto tech program. Our auto tech program, we always have about 40, 50 kids on the wait list. We'll be adding a second teacher. Our business and hospitality program is being moved, which requires classrooms to be renovated. The nice thing is our kids are doing. So I was actually up in our old building room today, and our electrical kids are up in the ceiling running wires. The carpenter kids are painting. They're putting a new floor down. And then when it comes to auto tech, the carpenter kids will be putting the doors in and getting those, actually putting up a wall as well. So the kids will get that experience. It does save money, of course. And then next year, you'll hear me talk about this at this meeting. We will be starting another program in the 25-26 school year, or 26-27 school year, and it's going to be first responder program. So our current multi-purpose room, which we will no longer need because of the addition, will become a first responder program where kids will earn their EMT certification. They'll be introduced to firefighting and additional police activities. So it's a growing program. There's a lot of demand out there, so we'll continue to grow. As far as other projects, just like every other school, we have maintenance we have to take care of. Our parking lot needs to be looked at. We have a lower parking lot there that needs to be fixed. And then I did throw on there at the very bottom, I won't get into it right now, is the possibility of another addition. But that's a discussion that we'll have another day. But overall, we continue to grow, not just student-wise, but also in the building. And thanks to you guys for all the support that you give us and to our students. So with that said, any questions for me?
Tom.
Can you
How long?
10.
can you remind me if the capital improvements right now, is it more for overdue renovations or is any of this to combat the rising enrollment?
So both. So the current addition you're talking about,
Yes.
so we're able to open up, when it's all done, 3 new programs. So one of them is the second auto tech program, by moving a current program where our adult ed office was. The current multi-purpose room, which is our first responder program, so that's 2, and then we opened up a physical therapy program. So yes, it increased our enrollment approximately 150 kids.
Okay, great. And then the 500, you said kind of on that waiting list compared to like, say, the previous 5 to 7 years timeframe, what does that look like?
Yeah, it's almost double. And I will tell you, that is not, I mean, I know Mike's sitting up there, that is not just NC2, that's a statewide
Sure.
challenge right now. I was at a meeting yesterday where this was discussed, so, so we are expecting that number to continue to go up.
So maybe talking about an addition in a future day, maybe not so future day, just to.
I'm ready for it.
We've had those discussions and we'll continue to have those discussions.
I got a couple questions.
Yeah, Mike.
Starting the second section of auto tech,
Yes.
how are you facilitating the equipment needs for the extra student bodies? Because I'm assuming it's, you're just opening up an existing lab? And
Yeah, so the existing lab, so you're familiar with our building, so what's gonna happen is our programs, what they have is you have a lab area, which is basically the shop, and a classroom. Well, that classroom that exists will turn and become an expansion of the current lab. So all the trainers that we have will be put in there, so what our teacher plans on doing is all the brake training, electrical training will be done in that section of the lab. Right behind that is where our current business and hospitality program is.
Okay.
We're gonna knock a hole in the wall, put a door in there, and that room happens to be bigger, so that will become classroom space for the 2 teachers. So it will expand lab space. I will tell you, it's in a dream world, I wish I had bigger lab space because I can't fit 100 kids. Our typical program is 50 kids per teacher. I don't have that kind of space, but it's what we can come up with.
Second question,
Yeah.
The EMT program. Is that redirecting a health careers program or is it in addition to?
It's in addition to.
In addition.
So, yeah, our health program is really geared towards nursing. And that alone, we have 100 kids in there and a wait list of,
Okay.
God knows how many, so it's an addition to.
And then my last, I just want to go back, there was a $400,000 increase overall. I just want to touch that point again here. On that, 200,000 of it is a result of one of our neighboring districts and their contract and the implications with salary that is reflected back upon MCTI and you as a shared school, we all endure that cost now.
That's correct.
Just wanted to make sure you discuss that. Thank you.
Anyone?
I have a question, not specifically
Sure.
directly related, but, and somebody here may already know this, but do you have by program, like where the Pleasant Valley, like out of curiosity, like where the Pleasant Valley kids are
Yes,
as far as like program demand?
yes.
And is that, I'd just like to kind of see that.
I could even give you, so we provide enrollment reports to the JOC, which has it broken down, but we could even add by weight.
I'll send it.
Yeah, that's not.
I'll send it.
The nice thing is actually, Dr. Berger actually presents it to all the superintendents each month. So that way we can start to see, especially in the beginning of the year, if we have some variances where students maybe start a program, but they're finding it's not the right fit and we're trying to bring other students, we'll see those numbers go up. Usually it's pretty consistent after the first month or two, but yeah, we do get that update. I'll share that with the
Okay.
whole board so you have the numbers, not only break down for PDs, but then also comparatively to all the other schools with all the programs. So you can see where our students are kind of gravitating towards, and we want to continue to, help students to
That's a good
navigate
question.
that.
To be honest with you, by district, it is different by district.
It is.
Just one more question.
Yeah.
When you said 50 students, is that 50 per one teacher, or is that?
Yes. Yeah, so.
But that's morning.
Yeah, so
It's
it's morning and
it's-
afternoon.
yeah, it's broken.
25 in the morning.
25 to 1, okay.
Yeah.
So
It's
max-
only 25.
They
Some-
just want 100, they don't.
No. Some programs are a little bit different, like welding, because of safety, is 20 kids per session. That usually what it comes down to, but the average program is 25 kids per session, so a total of 50.
And by the way, people should be up there, kind of the board member, that most of you gone up there. It's a great place up there. There's a lot happening. Awesome, a lot to see. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Dr. Berger. Thank you, Joel.
Thank you.
We will place the budget on our agenda at our next meeting for approval.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a good
you.
night.
All right, moving on to the agenda, student highlights, Pleasant Valley High School.
Good morning, or good afternoon, good evening. Good evening, Dr. Conrad, the school board. At the high school, we've been extremely busy. Lots of things happening since day one. A big push that we've had this year was getting student feedback for some of the events from the previous years and how can we make it even better. An example was in the fall, we had our pep rally football. A lot of students came into our office, were asking if we talked to you guys about maybe possibly a winter one and maybe making it more student-centered. But so we basically came up with where every month we've been meeting with the senior class and going over events. How can we make it better? How can we get more involved? And we had a very, very awesome winter pep rally. We brought back the Crush the Cardinal because I feel like that's been getting missing in the mix here. And we had a red cardinal where at the end of it, we had a bat with crushed. It was kind of cool to see. Kids definitely liked it. And so, I mean, our students are amazing this year. Our staff's amazing this year. We're very excited to show everybody our halfway point here at what's been happening in the high school. So we hope you guys enjoy. It's a PowerPoint with some music. So enjoy. Thank you. And again, we're looking forward to the rest of the school year.
Thank you, Mr.
More
Boyle.
to come.
Thank you, very nice. All right, Dr. Conrad, did we have any community questions?
Yes. Here we go. Yeah, so good evening, everyone. There were 4 community questions that were submitted. 2 community questions were submitted by Jordan O'Neill from Ross Township. The first question was regarding community questions and if the board reviews them. So as is stated at the top of the Google form, the superintendent reviews the questions. If needed, I also reach out to our administrative staff to help answer the questions if I don't know the answer myself. This is basically just an opportunity for the community to ask questions to the superintendent, which then I address publicly as I'm doing right now. And then there's, if there's time during working sessions, certainly, there's opportunities for public to, ask more in-depth questions during that particular section. The second question, again, submitted by Jordan O'Neill, was regarding adding rules, policies of how board meetings work. And actually items 3 and 15 on board agenda titled Pleasant Valley Citizens provides an opportunity for community comment. Also attached is policy 903, public participation in board meetings. So it really outlines, that opportunity for the public to participate. All of our board meetings are recorded. They're always available on our PV Bears website under the Administration and Board of Education on the left-hand side where it says recorded meetings. So at any point, if a community member or staff member, want to go back and look at what was stated about, a particular topic, they can always go back and access that. Our board has and continues to follow Robert's Rules of Order, which outlines how meetings are run. School board meetings actually serve as a platform for the school board directors to discuss key issues, approve plans and recommendations that impact progress being made. So it's very scripted in that regard. And I say that because there are opportunities during the working sessions for engagement with the community, and we'll see that a little bit more this evening, which I'm looking forward to. But again, there's certain objectives that need to occur with board meetings as they're scheduled here or in townships alike. The other two questions were submitted by Jenna Root. Oh, I'm sorry. I wanted to also clarify too that for the voting meetings that these are not open forums for discussion. And I just wanted to clarify that because I know oftentimes people will come to the podium for public comment and they'll ask questions. And it's very difficult because it's really not an opportunity to engage in discussion. But to combat that, there's always opportunities to reach out to me. I have parent meetings, phone calls, whatever's necessary, just to provide people with the information that they're seeking. So the other two questions were submitted by Jenna Rudolph of Chestnut Hill Township. The third question was offering only German 1 and German 2 and not 4 years. So we have not found a certified teacher for German, but we want to be able to offer this for our students. We will offer German 1 and German 2 virtually. We'll continue to have 4 years of Spanish, and next year we're adding French to the curriculum. The teacher is on the agenda this evening, in fact. And the final question was, does the school district keep track of comp time for administrators? I stated this back in December, so there's no comp time, but employees who put in several hours beyond the regular workday may be provided with flexibility as so long as it's not abused. And again, requests for flexibility are determined by the immediate supervisor. Our administrators are hired to understand that when they're hired, they're really going to be available 24/7. And I can attest to, and Dr. Howard as well, to calling every administrator in the evening, in the middle of the night, early morning to address maybe safety concerns or maybe a safe to say. And obviously that's happening more in high school when we have those discussions. But, they're always accessible, but we also have to counterbalance the time that they're working beyond, what would be considered regular business hours. And so certainly we want to make our community understand that none of these individuals have earned any sort of extra financial compensation as a result of this benefit, but it's that give take that they're willing to be available and accessible at a moment's notice to make sure that our staff and students are safe. Okay. And thanks for your questions. And again, the link is always on the website the week of the leading up to the board meeting. So please, continue to submit questions, and I'll do my best to respond to you. And honestly, if there's something that you need more details for, send me an email. Let's set up a time to meet, or maybe a phone call, and I can help address questions or concerns you might have. All right, thanks. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Smales, Secretary's report, please.
Good evening. Tonight I am requesting approval of the minutes of the meetings held on January 23rd, 2025, and approval of the February 13th, 2025 board meeting agenda, including a correction to item 13B. Pyramid should be $1,476.29, not $2,047.89, which will change the total in that area to $13,880.66 and $14,000.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Berger, seconded by Mr. Walters. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And that motion carries. At this time, are there any Pleasant Valley citizens that would like to address the board? This first comment period is on agenda items only. If you would like to, please come to the podium, state your name and the township that you reside in, and there is a 3-minute limit. Okay, seeing no one approach the podium, we will move on in our agenda. Treasurer's report, Mrs. Surface isn't with us, so Mr. Walters, if you would, please.
Thanks. Tonight, I am requesting approval for items 4B through 4D.
So moved.
Second?
A motion by Mr. Berger, seconded by Mrs. Zip. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. One, 4B, the school claims insurance, it talks about life insurance. That's like 732, 2,386.
These are their payments to the consortium for the various insurances that we have.
And 4D, the Madden USA remove and replace backstop. I thought we
My understanding is that the high school and the middle school backstops were damaged, so they were replaced.
It was motors. Motors went on. The motors lifts them up and down. They failed.
Anyone else? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And that motion carries. Moving on to unfinished business, Mr. Fitzgerald.
No unfinished business this evening.
Thank you. Is there any other unfinished business? Anyone? All right, moving on to new business. Monroe Career and Technical Institute. Mrs. Surface report is there. Did she provide you pictures or not?
She did, I can put them up very quickly.
Okay.
But please don't ask me to explain.
We'll try. She has provided just pictures of our construction report and pictures of the addition. The ones on the left are the previous month, I think, or November's, and then the ones on the right are January's, because we didn't have a meeting in December. So again, you can see the work that's being completed.
That'll be it.
Yeah. So it is coming along, and as Dr. Fergus said, they are on track.
And just one other thing, I noticed in a report that stated that we had 16 Pleasant Valley students that had outstanding performances. I think that's great that we have those kind of kids.
Yes. Yeah. All right, moving on, Mr. Galler, Colonial IU.
No report this evening. We'll have one for next meeting.
Okay. PSBA liaison, Mrs. Zip.
Report is attached.
Okay, thank you. Education report, I do not have anything this evening. I just have a question. I know this week or last week, I can't remember now, the visits were to the school districts concerning the ELA. So will we get an update? I know that, I think the next, I didn't see it. Are we going to get an update at some point, or is it going to wait till that board meeting till
I think we were waiting on tomorrow.
tomorrow? Yeah, that's right. When the,
Will be here
right.
meeting with the PBE, majority of the PBI teachers and some of the ELA special ed reading people from the high school and the middle school. And then they will be doing a survey on
Okay.
those visits.
so basically the next thing that's going to happen is at our next board meeting, approval will be on there. Is that correct?
And I'll share the survey with all of you, everybody.
You have
That's
before this.
wonderful.
Yes.
That's where our next thing, you were reading my
Yep.
mind. Okay, appreciate that. Thank you. Finance report, again, Mrs. Surface, again, later on in the agenda. Well, we did it already.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there
Items
is
will be
a-
covered during the business
Yeah.
management section.
Section, yeah. And I know during our work session, there's a lot of financial stuff that'll be gone over. All right, Mr. O'Keefe, athletics, please.
Yes, good evening. So I'm happy to report on January 25th, PB Girls Wrestling competed in EPCs. Huge congratulations to Julia Trout, who placed first, Isabel Altimos, who placed third, and Josie Fetterman, who placed fourth. So awesome job to all those ladies in their first year in doing that, and that's an awesome job for achieving that accomplishment. I'm not sure what goes on after that. Obviously, there's finals and all that stuff, but I'm sure we'll be reporting on that as it comes, but I did not have that in my report tonight. Another EPC's actually state competition on January 30th, our PB varsity cheerleaders competed in states. They had a great performance and ended up placing 16th in the state. I also want to give a huge shout out to our athletic director for jumping in and doing a great job as a music guy. It's a very stressful job. He was standing there with his finger on the phone, making sure it was ready for that moment in time to hit the music, because without that, it wouldn't have went right. So he's not here to hear that, but
I'll tell him.
he was emailed this, whether he read it or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
PB boys basketball finished 11-11 and qualified for the District 11 6A playoff tournament. The game will be against Allen at 7 p.m. on the 18th of February. So awesome job to them, and we wish them the best of luck. And then lastly is congratulations to Zach Prater, who made the boys EPC basketball second team for the year 24-2025. And I will not go through what I'm deeming now as the coaches' corner update. So it's just a little blurb back from the coaches of how the season has gone or is going. Lots of good information there, but I'm not going to go through that. I'll let you guys read that at your meeting. That's it.
Mr. O'Keefe, one of our female wrestlers are with us this evening. Isabel?
Well, let's round of applause. Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations. All right, Mrs. Zip, policy report.
There's one policy on the agenda this evening for first reading, policy 905.
Thank you.
Yeah, can I just, I know we put something there. Are we talking about putting like a frequency, like once?
I gotta address that once we approve it, okay? Is that okay?
Yep, no problem.
Okay. I do have some things I wanted to discuss.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Capital improvement, Mr. Berger.
We have not had a meeting since our last school board meeting. Our next meeting is scheduled 2 weeks from today. But just a shout out to individuals who have been using, particularly in the athletic area and the auditorium groups. We'll be starting construction here as soon as school lets out. So always check to make sure that you can find space available or be looking for alternative spaces, because at certain periods of time, certain sections of the school will not be available for use. So it may require modification of your schedule over the next couple of years.
A lot of flexibility. Thank you, Mr. Berger. Technology, Mr. Clark.
My report is attached for you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Walters, security?
No new information.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, superintendent, please.
All right, well, tonight I'm seeking board approval for item 7A. I'm sorry, 7A is information.
Okay. Can I just?
Yes.
Go? Okay, so 7A had to do with the policy 905, which is the Citizens Advisory Committee. Does anybody have any thoughts? Is the policy okay? Any updates? I thought it,
I said maybe.
well, I have other stuff, but I just meant the policy itself, the way it's written, I guess I should say. We're all okay with the way it's written? Okay. All right, so it'll be on next meeting for approval. Just to give you some items that I think we should start either discussing or for you to think about so that we can discuss at next meeting would be, as you know, in the policy, it says that the committee should have a topic and assignment. So what things would you like for those topics to be? And then I would like to know if there's any board members that would like to volunteer. As the policy states, it's 3 board members. And then do you see this being a committee for all topics, staying put, or do you see like different community members on another topic, like if they have expertise, maybe rotating individuals from the community? Just something I thought of, but again, however the board would like to do it. And
Once you get, what are you talking?
can I just finish?
Oh,
Then
I-
you can. Let me
I thought we were
finish.
having dialogue about
Well,
this.
we can, yeah. And then once we have the first topic decided upon, how are we going to disseminate the process for residents to submit their interest to becoming a committee member? Another thought I had. And then also just to continue on in the policy, it does state that the board does need to approve those committee members from the community. So we have to do all that. So go ahead.
first question I have is, I think we need to talk about is frequency.
Mhm.
I'll throw it out there, I think this committee should meet monthly. As far as designated topics, I think that's gonna be a moving target based on what's happening here in our community and within the district. But I think every committee meeting should have some sort of, I'm gonna call it educational component to it, educational for the committee to understand and educate the committee as to how some things are handled, how things procedurally are done. That's what I meant by education. I know we're in the educational community here, but the committee should be educated on various topics as well throughout the meeting, for the committee to be effective and for them to represent their respective members within the community as well.
Mhm.
So that's just what my 2 cents so far. I know you had some stuff.
No, I agree with you. I think the frequency should be once a month. Same with the topic. I think some of it, like we've heard before, there's a lot of people coming out here that are expressing a lot of concerns that aren't on our agenda, aren't in our radar. And if this committee can like see some of those things in advance and like help them educate them as to why things are happening, we, lower the amount of people coming here and, I don't always say the nice word, complaint sessions, type thing.
And I don't want to make it sound to the people out in the community that we're just railroading this way. It's collaboration here. But as you just said, there could be times where people just don't understand. But the whole idea is we sit here, we're representative of our community, but let's expand our community. And I think that's what we're trying to do here. Is somebody may have a great idea and bring it, and then we can have a brainstorming session on that as that committee goes and stuff, and then we can come back with the feedback, just like we do with our committee reports. So I don't want to make it like we're just putting it out there, it's us educating the committee. That's not what I wanted to say, but there should be an educational component, maybe depending on what the topic is.
I got that. Mhm.
So,
Any other comments at this time?
I like the idea of a frequency of once a month, but I do like language being in there to allow the board to have any type of ad hoc or special meeting depending on,
Sure.
say it's something important, like a very important building discussion, contracted, teacher contract discussion, or maybe just in general questions asked. So give us the ability then also to add a meeting if necessary, just to have that language.
Especially with all these, especially with all these renovations going on, that monthly meeting might be a time to get more discussion out there. And with these people, that are coming, they'll be able to put it out there, hey, this is what's happening, or someone comes and says something like, they already discussed that, and, that type of thing. I would volunteer to be part of that committee.
Anyone else?
I just think it's every.
Bob Clark.
There you go.
Was that?
Pete, somebody just volunteered.
I could potentially do it depending on the timing and the dates and times. So I'd be a tentative, but unless it depends on date and time and what that looks like. I don't wanna sacrifice my kids enough. I already, depending on what they have going on. I'd be interested.
I think who would represent the board might be somewhat dependent on what the topic is.
That's true.
So I think we need to maintain some degree of flexibility so that each one of us brings that different set of experiences and
Right, shifting in now,
talent.
you're in charge of with
Building.
most of the renovations, so having you.
Yeah, so,
Great.
if it deals, for example, with, like you're saying, with what's going on with renovation and how we might think about some other options to make it easier for the community at large and our students, then somebody from the capital improvements should at least be present. So, and typically if it deals with another topic that somebody has an expertise, whether it be finance or education or athletics, whatever it is, then that person should be as a minimum present.
Would it be palatable to have like maybe two members that are constant and that one's more rotational one?
Yeah.
So that gives all of us an opportunity to sit on that at some point to hear that community
And if there is an expertise area like capital improvements that Norm is there, he's not as a normal attendee, he would come to that particular item. So then you have, and that gives flexibility too for members who have other obligations outside here. But also to be a part of that community, not just lock it into 3 locked in board members.
I would say that we should have a board chair. Since John volunteered to be on the committee in the first place, I would say John would be the board chair. And the reason I say we need a board chair is there needs to be a funnel for that committee to have emails going back and forth between that one point of contact. So I'd say let's designate that as the board chair for the committee. And again, since when Bob, not, but he stepped up right away on it. So I would say that we need to have that point of contact person. That's that consistent person to establish the meetings or coordinate everything and all that stuff. So
I agree with that. If you're willing to do that, I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, I want to hear if everyone's good.
Yeah.
I would accept that, yes.
So this will be revised then, as far as, right, because what it's very focused now, right? Like, I'm gonna give this committee a task, this is what they're gonna accomplish, you're gonna provide me with recommendations.
And there's going to be two permanents and 1 rotating, is that?
So,
I know this is tough.
So I'll try to just because.
That's the way it's written now, right, it's specific.
Yeah,
Okay.
So we'll definitely make the necessary adjustments, and I'll make sure that I get that to the board, so that way you have an opportunity to provide some feedback prior to the second read and adoption. I've worked on an AR specific to address some of these, and I really like the conversation we're having, because I agree, we want to make sure that we're also respectful of the various expertise of the board members here, some that are in finance, some that are in business and different industries. That might lend itself to a discussion for finance, whereas maybe somebody is better suited for education. And I think that kind of creates that equal share opportunity for all of our 9 board members to be engaged with our community. So I'll work through and put some things together. I think as I'm listening to all of you speak, and this is a great, again, discussion, I think really from my standpoint, and maybe we're looking at the short run and the long run, and what I mean by that is we're now in the middle of February. We know that we're heading into budget season. We know in the past that the budget has been something that maybe some people have questions about. It might behoove us to say, hey, and I'm not saying we have to do this, but I'm saying maybe we have a discussion about, a budget committee, because that's probably going to be the next thing we discuss over the next several months. Maybe there's also an opportunity for, education programs or, curriculum or things like that. That might be another topic as we're looking long-term into starting 25, 26. So I think we want to obviously be very tactful about, what the objectives are, but I also love the idea of, that ad hoc, like, hey, maybe we need to do a deeper dive, and maybe that can be part of a working session. So I think respecting everyone's, personal work schedule, and then obviously obligations to our district and the things that we love to do for our kids and community. I'll definitely, like I said, I'll draft some of these ideas up. If we're okay, John, if you do, or whomever wants to be kind of that chairperson, I like the idea of the rotation too. I could put that language into the AR, so that way it kind of encompasses even to the community, hey, this is how we're really going to operate. Here's the mechanics, which is the policy itself, but the AR kind of lends itself to the understanding of how do we get from point A to point C. So
within that also, just, we're talking community, we're talking you as administrators. Every so often we like some of you to show up some of these meetings, give some of your perspectives and explanations. Same with teachers and stuff like that. We like them to come to some of these meetings so we can, so if there's some community questions or something that you might be able to answer better than any of us up here in the board, the same institution, what's going on. So it's like, it's not we're excluding you. are, this community, we all say it's all of us. It's the board, it's the staff, it's administration. So we're open to all.
Yeah, I'm just trying to envision, like, want it to be meaningful, right, and productive. So I just don't know how we're gonna manage that with just like defining topics, like, no, you know what I mean? I don't want it to be like an hour a month that we're
So
getting
maybe
feedback on like everything.
Correct.
We can't
Maybe someone would email, thank you we have to email ahead of time, saying, okay, here are some topics that we like, and then,
I think,
you know.
I think we
contact
need to
everyone.
come up with that, as I said, I think as a board, we need to come up with some topics. And then once you have a community, once you have a meeting, then you can get their feedback and say, is there any topics that you might like to see done? But I think we have to initiate it. That's what I think.
I agree.
And I think it has to have a topic, So I think Mr. O'Keefe, did you want to say something?
I was just saying, we
thought you
keep in
started.
mind, this is version 1.
Yeah,
It's not
right,
gonna be
exactly.
perfect.
Exactly.
We gotta not jump into it, but just ease our steps into it and make sure it's done right. I think the community deserves it. We deserve the interaction with the community to make sure that we're being well balanced and looking after why we're up here in the first place, being voted to do what we're to do. So I don't want to jump into it. I want to think this through, do it right, and make sure that we're capturing what the community wants. So maybe as one of our working sessions, we make this a topic. Maybe community comes in, has our conversations, and we build that agenda together, making a standing agenda, but have that flexibility that at the end of that meeting, all right, next month, we want to talk about these topics. But you stick with the standard agenda, and then you open it up to some flexibility at the end.
And also start to look at the community members that are gonna be part of this process as well. Maybe they can start coming, give us an idea what they have on. And we have all these different, we have the Elms Ridge, Hope, Chestnut Hill and all that. Get a variety of people from different communities, at least one representing each of those communities. Norm?
What I would suggest is try not to get into more than one topic at a time.
Correct.
Because what you're gonna find yourself is you're gonna be drugged in several different directions. And you'll be going nowhere. It's kind of like getting stuck in a snowbank.
Well, plus you
You're
need,
spinning your wheels, but not making any progress.
plus if we need to bring in certain administrators
Yeah.
that have the expertise in the topic
And
we're
that's why you have to
focusing on.
do some
Right.
planning ahead
Ahead
of
of time.
time. So you pick the topic that you're gonna have for the next session, and
Mhm.
between that session and a month later, you get the input from a variety of sources. So you in fact come into the door with an agenda and some information related to that agenda, because there are gonna be some people that are gonna be coming in from the community that haven't seen any of this, but you don't wanna spend your whole time trying to explain what's on your agenda and the general information. Let them read that on their
So
own.
would you limit the time of the meeting to an hour or?
Yeah, I think there should be, I do agree, there should be a time limit to, just so everybody knows what the parameters are. All right, so Dr. Conrad's gonna put some ideas together in an AR, I believe.
Yeah.
Is how we're gonna,
Are we okay with the language of the policy as it stands?
I think,
And then we can kind of flesh it out a little bit more
More in
through
the
the AR with the things we've been discussing so far?
So
Is
we're
that
gonna need
okay?
to talk about the vetting process.
That's a good
Once we get the ball
Yep.
rolling here.
Yeah.
The vetting process for our community members.
Mhm.
Just throwing aside here now, I think just a letter of intent with, what your background, your angle from the community is. And then I think we should, as a board of the whole, be looking at that, and who that's gonna be comprised of. Not, no disrespect to the chair or to Rob down there, but,
What you do, could we do like a Google form that would
yeah, I think we
basically
should come up with a
collect
Google form or
letter of
something.
intent, and questions that would,
Right,
what their, intents, what they're looking for, topics of
but
interest.
I wanna
for
see
them.
all 9 of us reviewing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what the
We're all
policy
representative of our community members
that's
that
what the
voted us
policy
in,
calls
so.
for. Okay, we kicked it around enough at this moment?
You have that draft ready by tomorrow morning?
By tonight. I'll send you videos.
You missed the meeting, it was an hour ago.
Okay, thank you everyone for all your input. All right, we're up to human resources.
Yeah, thank you. Multitasking is
I
not
know.
my forte, you guys kind of know that, so. All right, moving on to human resources. Mrs. Fulmer.
Good evening. Tonight I'm seeking approval of items 8B through 8E. Items 8F through 8G are informational.
So move.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Walters, seconded by Mr. Galler. Is there any discussion? Just letting you know, I'm going to be abstaining from 8D2 relative. Anyone?
So 8B, that is getting rid of, not getting rid of, obtaining somebody to get rid of one of our online classes.
Correct, yes, there'll be some changes, because now we'll have certified teachers that can actually teach.
And I know this isn't part of human resources, but unfortunately, we were impacted by that. What a debacle. I'm gonna tell you, we need to find something, I don't know if it's Seneca Valley, or if this is the teacher that we were dealing with. We should be getting paid back for it's horrific. And then somehow I became a student of Pleasant Valley as well, with not my school email or school work email, but with my personal email. So I'm a little disappointed in that. I think we need to really look at how and what we're doing, because it's a little disappointing. I think kids are in these buildings for a reason, because they don't want to be in front of a screen. And we owe that to them, the community, to make that happen. So
I actually 100% agree with you, and I think all of us from the administration team, unfortunately, we've experienced this probably more of an increase in the last 2 years, I've noticed. But when we do have mid-year resignations and retirements, it really does jam us up. And I can tell you that we've spent hours, trying to rearrange and shuffle what we can do to best support students. But I think we can all agree, and we've had this discussion many times, that what's best in most cases for our students is somebody that's right in front of them, somebody that's certified in that subject, that's committed to them, that, isn't going to be leaving in 2 weeks before the start of the second semester, and I say that because it's so critical for us to work together and have some, I guess, way to address something that might be happening. I think sometimes we get caught in the midst of, like just getting a letter from somebody saying, hey, my last day is, X. And it's like, we can hold them for 60 days, but let's just be honest. Do you think that the students are benefiting from an individual being held for 60 days? So again, it's very complicated. And I do want our parents to understand that as well, that, this isn't a most ideal situation. We found a patch, I'll say, because there is a certified teacher in those online classes that's at least, giving them instruction. Is it what we desire? Absolutely not. And I want to be crystal clear about that. But we also need to know and have communication. If, somebody's thinking of retiring or resigning, like if we don't know that, then again, we're going to be plugging holes as we've been doing. So it really comes back to that communication and really working together to do what's best for kids. But I agree 100% with what you're saying. And we need to do a better job to, work through when we have those challenges, but we also need to do a better job to prevent or at least anticipate those challenges from happening. But I agree with you.
So what did, and again, I can't answer this question. An older teacher would be able to answer. What did we do when we didn't have online opportunities? The teacher decided to leave, or decided to class to fill?
Short-term sub, long-term sub. I mean, and again, if we're lucky, maybe lesson plans that were left. I mean, in my own experience, and not necessarily here, but there's been times where teachers left and there's no lesson plans, so they're scrambling to get lesson plans from other individuals. Some of the teachers, obviously will be education focused and student focused and leave that. But frankly, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but at least what I've seen, in my previous experience was you get a long-term sub if you're lucky, and most likely you're just getting a day-to-day and you're lucky to get worksheets. I mean, let's just call it what it is.
And sometimes the students were absorbed in the other classes.
Yeah, that could be true. Yeah.
And Brian, to go back to your question, the problem's always been around.
Yeah, true.
It's just, it's being spotlighted more right now because of the overall teacher shortage.
That's
in the
true.
pipeline. But it's always been there, and that's always been issues that schools have had to deal with throughout time. But like I said, just because of the shortage right now, there's no replacements.
And for what it's worth, and again, this is, I think, important for the community to understand, it's almost like we have two options. We could certainly go with the easier option, which is I can get somebody from ESS and do the day-to-day sub. Do we think that that's going to get our kids further along and at least cover the gap of knowledge that they'd experience otherwise? We've pivoted to not use Edgenuity as the solution, but as a solution to have some sort of, curricular and educational continuity in the absence of that teacher that was there at the start of the school year. I just think that, again, we've had hours of discussions about this. Seneca Valley and using Edgenuity for this, predicament is not our end goal, but it's a better goal than having somebody who doesn't have the certification, who doesn't know our kids on a day-to-day basis, to give them something that they can hang on and learn educationally. But I think what Mr. Galler said, and he's right, this has been a problem for the last 10 years. And
And
again,
this is a better option than what we had 15, 20 years ago.
and it's a better option than we had 5 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
And I do know other districts are also, and also pivot to online stuff, even though it's not.
Yeah.
Optional, but it's.
I just have one other thing, I was just, it's what happens, I remember we have these teachers teaching college classes in Pleasant Valley. And I think it was brought up that once that if some of these teachers are only certain ones are certified to teach certain classes, what happens if they decide to retire or resign? What happens to the students that are involved with those college classes?
We could work with the college to get, if students have paid for the credit, sometimes the colleges would send somebody here to do it, but we would also have a teacher from Pleasant Valley sitting in there, that I would want to take a teaching position away from our.
Yeah, I was just curious, that you're talking about all this, I think that's great ingenuity, but if they're taking a college class with an actual teacher, that's gonna be, that can't happen ingenuity on that. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And that motion carries.
Tonight I'm seeking approval of items 9B through 9D. Items 9E is informational.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Kaczynski, seconded by Mr. Walters. Is there any discussion? Hearing if none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And that motion carries.
Moving on to curriculum, Dr. Howard.
Yes, good evening, tonight I'm seeking approval for item 10A.
So moved.
Second,
I have a motion by Mr. Galler, seconded by Mr. Kaczynski. Is there any discussion?
yes. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Bodo for the conversation we had about your program studies, and I like how you fixed those problems that were in there. I'm very appreciative of that. I just have a question, Ms. Harris. If you have a chance to look at any of those classes that were removed, is there going to be any problems with our, okay, just want to make sure. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And that motion carries.
Moving on to operations, Mr. Snell.
Good evening, I'm seeking approval of item 11A.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Galler, seconded by Mr. O'Keefe. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And that motion carries.
Moving on to business management, Mrs. Snell.
Tonight I request the approval of items 12B through 12H.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Berger, seconded by Mr. Kaczynski. Is there any discussion?
Frontline, I know you said it once before, but I forgot what it was.
So Frontline is a human resource management system. It also houses our ASOP system, which is our substitute system, how we are actually not just substitutes, but how teachers actually account for their time and all employees. It's entered into that system. So there's different levels of the Frontlines. We have Frontline Central, which is an HR program. We have the ASOP program, and we also have recruiting and hiring, which is how we post positions, recruit people, and keep everything filed within a system and timestamped. The professional growth piece will actually be able to replace at least 2 other platforms that we have that we won't need. So it'll be one-stop shopping, basically, for all of our employees. So they'll be able to go to human resources for a lot of the things that they need, like Act 48. We won't have Comply. Our trainings will all be built right in this system. And then obviously the Gold Star system is the business office will be the other system that we have, and they both can communicate with one another.
Okay, so you're saying it's like the ASOP, so it keeps track of personal days, vacation days?
There's different components of it. So we already have we already have recruiting and hiring, and we already have Frontline Central. Now we're looking to bring on professional growth, which can do a lot of things for us.
So I guess what I'm asking is if it's like the ASOP, so that keeps track of everyone here that's.
How many sick days they have.
Yeah, it's just mainstreaming it all into one system, so it's easier and user-friendly for all of our employees.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And that motion carries.
I'm also requesting approval of item 13B.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Galler, seconded by Mr. Clark. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And that motion carries. Mr. Fitzgerald, any new business?
Just very briefly, we mentioned at the last meeting about various orders that have been coming out by the new administration that have impacts on school districts. Even since the last board meeting, there have been a blizzard of additional ones that have impacts on Title IX, the EEOC, and other areas that impact school entities. Suffice to say, we are keeping an eye on all of them. At the present time, there isn't one that's explicitly binding yet on districts, but we anticipate, based on how some of the orders have been written, that new regulations should likely be forthcoming as we get into the spring. So we'll certainly keep you posted.
Thank you. Pleasant Valley citizens, is there anyone this evening that would like to address the board on any item? Please, again, come to the podium, state your name, township you reside in, and there is a 3-minute time limit.
Good evening, Ali Rundle, I'm from Chestnut Hill Township, and actually Mr. O'Keefe, you led the way for this. I'm speaking tonight on concerns that I have with Ingenuity, the staffing situation at the high school, and Sunny's communication. Currently, there are numerous classes that are taught through Ingenuity due to staffing issues. Metals, which isn't even through Ingenuity, they have to choose other electives. Advanced robotics, biology, ecology, chemistry, earth and space science, and even physics. Some of these classes aren't even offered through their online platforms, so children have to take coding classes. My son fell in that category. He could not take earth and space science, so he is in astronomy. This is not acceptable. The online classes do not have a teacher. They have a keeper of grades. No one is actually teaching our children. They're watching videos and answering questions. That's their education, or lack thereof, to be honest. The resources to the teacher is an email if they have a question. The letter the district sent out to the parents stated that a Pleasant Valley teacher would be in the room with the students. That is also not true. A day-to-day sub is in the classroom with my son. Pleasant Valley subs are not PV employees. They're brought in from an outside agency. They're just monitoring our schools, these children in class. Big question, how much is this costing our district, these day-to-day subs? How our school district is fortunate enough to have a phenomenal physics teacher, yet he's only teaching one of the physics classes. Who made this decision? Why is this okay? How is this the best for our children? My son has a gifted IEP. How are his goals being addressed and met through an online platform that does not have a physical teacher teaching him? Who's going to actually fill out his third marking period progress report? The computer program that he watches all day long? This is all occurring due to staffing issues at the high school. I think it's time that parents in the community get some answers as to why the staff turnover is so great at this school. My son went through this last year and 2 of his classes, and again this year. This revolving door of teachers is occurring in core subjects, classes where these students need to take Keystones. These classes are supposed to prepare them for high school and higher education, yet they are watching videos. None of this is preparing them for high school or for higher education. No part of this is challenging them or providing them with rigorous instruction or hands-on learning opportunities. Last year, his geometry class went through 2 teachers. His biology class went through 3 teachers. Our children will never establish relationships with staff when they never know who's coming or who's going. This year, his last 3 weeks of his metals class went on without a metals teacher. Again, a vetted teacher left our district for another. His earth and space science class is just as bad this year. Ingenuity, he was pushed into, being monitored by a day-to-day sub. Another teacher, I was told, and I appreciate Mr. Bowen getting back to me with answering all my questions. He's wonderful with that, so I do appreciate that. Another teacher coming on February 17th, and then yet another teacher replacing that teacher beginning in March. But nobody will live instruct him until the end of the third marking period. So with 2 hired teachers, he will still be staring at a computer screen. I don't know how this is okay. There is zero consistency, and our children are the ones that suffer. I can appreciate that the staffing issues are out of the hands of the administrators at the high school. However, I cannot appreciate the lack.
Ms.
of
Rundle, I'm
communication.
sorry, but your 3 minutes are up.
Good evening. Jody Kresge, I'm from Polk Township, and I'm speaking on a similar issue as well. Our family was personally impacted by this year as well. My daughter's a junior and had all intentions of participating in third year of German this year, and the teacher left the district, so approximately a week before the school year started, we got an email from her guidance counselor saying we had to pick something else, and it had to fit in fourth period because that was the only spot free in her schedule due to all the other courses that were already selected. And taking another third year of a language wasn't an option, so she ended up with an online course and then an art class, both of which she found beneficial. But the reality is that for many students, high school is their chance to build their resume for college and higher education. And most colleges, they don't require 3 years per se, most recommend it. My daughter in particular hopes to go on and apply for a very competitive major, and so she's now at a disadvantage not having the third year of a language when other students will be applying with that. She and many of her friends were hoping to join the National German Honor Society this year, which is now not an option because that's reserved for third and fourth year language participants. But on a bigger picture than just German, it's impacting many courses. And in my building alone, I know 5 colleagues who have students, who have children who've had this experience. And as educators, we're constantly encouraged to have rigor and engagement in our lessons and in our day-to-day interactions with our students. And this is far from rigorous or engaging for our students. And it concerns me for my own child, who is a motivated, high-achieving person for her readiness for college when this is happening prevalent, with increased prevalence. And I am a therapist, and so I'm a solutions-oriented person. So I'm not here to just complain and air my concerns about this. I'm here to ask you to start making some solutions and be creative about it. We're all aware that there's a teacher shortage. I ask you to look why we're having particular trouble in this district attracting and retaining them. But I also ask you to think outside the box. I got a mailing many weeks ago from Northampton Community College where many German classes are offered. Maybe we can partner with them. Someone could Skype in and teach our students German. Like, we have to get creative because this teacher shortage isn't going anywhere anytime soon. I was raised by a public educator. I'm married to a public educator. I've been in public education for 8 years. I want to believe in it. I do it every day, but it's getting harder to do that with things like this that concern me. So I bring it back to you to try and think hard about ways we can address this that aren't just throwing your hands up and saying, there's no German teachers to be found. That is the truth, but.
I'm sorry, Ms. Kresge, but your 3 minutes are up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Wendy Green, and I'm a resident of Ross Township. I want to thank everyone who's here because I know that you're here because you care about your community, and especially board members because you give your time, and also administration because it makes it a long day. But I'm here to piggyback on the concerns of the last 2 residents. I'm just wondering, what's the plan for the issue with staffing and the ingenuity issue? What's the long-term plan? How are we going to attract and retain staff? What's happening? It seems like there has been an exodus of staff in the last couple of years. If someone could retire, they did. If they could leave, they did. So, I mean, my son loves Peavey High School. For the last 2 years, he's had some concerns about his education and how that will impact him later. So I'm looking to, I didn't realize until recently how much this was an issue. So I'm here out of concern. Thank you.
Good evening, Rosemary Altos, Chestnut Hill Township. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of my son, James. I have a daughter that graduated, I'm a graduate, my husband's a graduate, I'm currently a sophomore. Daughter that attends the district. My son James attends Immaculate Conception in Penargil. James has been playing lacrosse since he's been in first grade. He's gone through the Youth Grizzlies program since then for 6 years now. Currently this year, we learned that due to the success of the girls' team, which is phenomenal, I'm very proud of that, that they incorporated a middle school girls' team and a boys' team, which we learned this because we stopped getting the emails for the youth league and everything else because of the boys' team, and we were told that he was no longer allowed to play. I approached the athletic director and tried to have a discussion about it, and I was told that, oh, well, that's the way it is. He goes to a different school. Now, we live in the district. I have children in the district. And I proceeded to research the PIAA rules, which are ambiguous at best, okay? They're up for, you can interpret them in many ways. What was clear about them was homeschool children, charter children, cyber school children are all allowed to play in district. My son, because he's a Catholic school or private school child, isn't allowed to play, which I find, a little disturbing. So here's a boy who's been playing, it's the only sport that he does. He loves it with all his heart. He was out there practicing in the snow the other night because he doesn't know what to do. He had no box lacrosse this year. He was denied that. And I don't know where to go from here. So I'm standing here asking you for your help because I don't understand why this is happening. Other schools in the valley that I've talked to, different administrators, school board members, they all have agreements with schools. They have waivers that are signed. They check in with the coordinating schools, seeing about their eligibility or whatever else. His school does not offer lacrosse. It's not like he has an option to play there at Penargil. There is no sport there for him to play when it comes to lacrosse. So I'm a little taken back by it. I'm bringing this to your attention. I'm asking if someone could look into it and help us with this, because I don't understand why other, variations or different outlets of education, as such as cyber, charter, homeschool, are allowed, but my private school child is not. That doesn't make sense to me. He doesn't have an option. There is no other sport.
Mrs.
for him to
Alamos,
play
I'm
there.
sorry, your 3 minutes are up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If anyone is willing to ask questions and willing to help me, we'll stay after, and I would appreciate that.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the board? You can come up again, and I just need to keep my rules if you have something else you'd like to add, but we do allow that. Okay. Seeing no one else come to the podium, school board directors, does anyone have anything this evening?
I had some, like you were talking about, Mr. Borger was bringing up about the gym and stuff like that. I'm curious as to, maybe you can answer this, we're getting ready to do that gym. Is the person who's putting in, are they ordering, is this all supplies and everything come with that? Like, we're getting new bleachers, we're getting new floors. The installer, the person who's installing, are they the ones that are bringing that? So
Yeah.
they have it ordered and they're coming in and they're gonna put all that down. And they're not, because I'm just curious, like, when this is gonna begin. I know sometimes we had, like, we were supposed to clean the floor the one time, then volleyball season, right before that, we were saying, guess what? The floor cleaner didn't come in, so now you're pushed to middle school. So I'm just wondering if we're gonna start this gym floor, we're gonna have the floor and the bleachers ready to go, so when they come here, we start, we finish it, and get it ready to be used by everybody.
Right, okay, yeah. I talked to the engineers actually today about that very thing. The way it's looking, we're not gonna have time to do both. We're probably gonna do the floor first, and then do the bleachers at a later date, probably next summer, is what we're looking at now. Because the bleachers are, I think, 6 or 9 months out if you order them right now.
So the floor, they're gonna order the floor, bring it in, put that in, and they're just waiting until the following season, so.
That's what it's projecting right now.
Correct.
It's not defined yet. That'll get answered.
So, can I piggyback on that? So we're gonna do the gym floor this summer.
That's what they're projecting right now.
Okay, why wouldn't we just wait and do both at the same time? I guess I have a concern.
We can.
Could we push off both until the summer of '26?
Is it the same installer though? Is it like, okay? it's-
Well, my concern is
Right,
that
well, I'm saying
taking
maybe
those
this guy
new
should do it
bleachers,
without-
taking the old bleachers out, putting new ones in, and you have a new floor in. And then could you damage that new
Oh, you're
floor?
not putting-
That's where
you're not
I'm,
putting the old bleachers back
sorry,
in,
I'm,
right? No, they were pulling those out, just putting the floor in, there would be no bleachers at all.
Yeah, I think she's saying in the removal process, the floor might be
Right,
dinged
there
out.
would be no
The new-
bleachers at all for the year.
that's all I'm asking.
Yeah.
This is the first I'm hearing this, so
Yeah.
that's would just be my question for the engineer. That's all, you know.
So the floor is gonna be done.
That's what we're talking about right now, just because of the time constraints right now. That's not a set in stone thing. We'll talk about that at the next meeting, I'm sure.
I think at one time, part of the discussion on relative to the floor is there are certain areas where the boards are so thin that you're getting parts of it broken off. So to some extent, it's becoming somewhat of a safety issue.
Yeah.
And I think that's why there would be some people leaning to do the floor as soon as possible. I understand the possibility of damage, but I think there's probably ways
Yeah, I'm
that
sure.
can be
People do
compensated.
this all the time.
And so I don't think we want to answer the question here tonight, but certainly the question is raised and it's worthwhile thinking about what is the best approach to go forward.
Yeah, just like, we don't know what's underneath that floor and it caused it to be what it was, so that's, like, will they do that floor and find, how long does it surprisingly take? Sort of like that summer with all those bees. Okay, thank you. One other thing I just have before going with that is the furniture are we getting all new furniture for all the renovations, or is that? Are we getting all new furniture for these renovations and stuff like that? Okay, so that's gonna be, all that old stuff is going to be.
That's included.
What?
They're
Do we do something like we do with the sports equipment? Do we put it out there for?
working on that right
Oh,
now.
okay.
Some stuff is not usable,
Yeah.
but other stuff will be auctioned.
Thank you. Good.
Okay, all right. Anyone else?
Just one, Mr. Ultimos, just keep sticking your hand. The answer that you got probably isn't the best one that we have for you. I don't know the rules, but I think we owe you a better answer than no. Because I don't understand the rules either. So why is it somebody in CCA can play? If your school doesn't offer it, why can't you play for PV? I'm not saying, I'm not against rules. This is Mr. O'Keefe, Ron O'Keefe's opinion. But don't discourage yourself, regardless of the outcome, okay? Keep strong, keep hitting that wall. And as a coach of the 5-6 girls, you want to come help us out? I welcome you to come help us out, but we owe you a better answer, right? And it's not that we can't do it. Okay?
I just
Okay.
think that there's more research to be done.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't-
I'm not happy with the
Nazareth
answer.
does it.
Yeah.
I'm willing to stay around and talk about it as well. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, Dr. Conrad.
So thank you for being here tonight and talking about, your concerns and how they impact your children. And that's something that we need to hear more about because we want to make sure our kids are safe, they're getting the best education possible. And again, I agree with you. It doesn't need to be that, well, there's nothing we can do. I think that there are solutions. One of the things, we're talking about wondering why. And unfortunately, we're in a position where teachers, especially new teachers, and some that are not the more tenured teachers that have invested a lot of time in the district, have the ability to earn more money. And I can tell you frankly, through exit interviews, 6 exit interviews of teachers within the last 2 years cited specifically, and it wasn't just all about money, but money was a major factor in it, and we're talking about a $10,000 bump or so. So it's significant, and that's something that, we need to obviously be prepared to look at and discuss. There are other things too. What is the environment that some of our new teachers, we had 2 recently in the high school that left, and the environment wasn't a welcoming environment. And these are coming from individuals who, actually, one of them that graduated from here. Unfortunately, sometimes it's that mentality of maybe the grass is greener somewhere else. Maybe they can get a little bit more money. But I also think, what is the working relationship, in the high school? Because seriously, we're seeing this more rampant, issue at the high school. And then I also want the community to understand, we have about 300 teachers, 186 of them are at the top step of the salary matrix. And I say that because what that means is, in order to get to that top step, you have to put years of service in, which is 14. When you take a look at the last several years, and don't quote my number, I'm just trying to, give an estimation, but I would say that on average, we're averaging about maybe like 10 to 15, I'd say, teachers that are of age to retire, or maybe are looking to move on to greener pastures, right? So again, these are all things that we need to consider, and from my standpoint, we do need to talk about this. This is an employee union labor thing that probably needs to be discussed as we continue. Obviously trying to work through teacher contracts, which I know both parties are working through right now, and that's exciting to see some momentum going. But these are some topics that really, in my opinion, should be discussed in the future, because they impact our kids and they impact our staff's kids too as well. So that's an important piece that we definitely need to continue to work through. It's not a one solution. It's not just finances. It's not just how I'm treated as an employee with my colleagues. But let's be honest, those are definitely 2 factors that I'm seeing in my exit interviews. So again, we need to really unpack that. We need to look ourselves in the mirror and say, what can we do to get to a better place? But like I said before, I think the solution that we're putting forth is better than the solution that we had, but it's not the best solution. So we need to be very mindful of that. And then lastly, with Mr. Chizicki also, and Mrs. Altimos, what I would ask is this. I do know that there's that longstanding, challenge with Catholic schools, being essentially excluded from PIAA, and I also don't know all the rules, but I understand, where some of the dissension has been in the past couple of years, being primarily cited that, especially in playoffs. I know there's been a lot of articles published about, the Catholic schools and they're able to stack their sides, so they're winning a lot more state championships. So there's some bad blood. I think that's mixed in with all of this. What I would say is that if you, and it's great, if you have contacts with Northampton and other school districts, if you can share that to my athletic director and myself, just about what does that, waiver or liability, because I would certainly explore that as an option. I can't guarantee it, but I'm also not going to put Pleasant Valley in jeopardy of actually forfeiting games because we're trying to accommodate your son. And certainly we would have never wanted that intention for your son to not, be able to continue to play lacrosse. I mean, I'm very happy that we're offering it here, but you're right. There's unfortunately some baggage that comes with that. And I'm very sorry that happened, because as a former college athlete, I would never want students to not have that opportunity. But certainly if you see or coming across things, share it our way, because I'd be more than willing to take the time to understand, how are they kind of getting around? Is there a loophole that I'm maybe not aware of? And maybe we can work through that process. Okay. But thanks for sharing that, because I wasn't aware of that. So, and then last thing, promise. There are updates to the 24-25 school calendar. We've used actually all of our remote instruction days for the school year, and we actually implemented one snow day. Therefore, the last day for students is currently on Monday, June 2nd. I've communicated out that the commencement has not changed. That date remains intact. But I did want to direct our staff and students and parents to the district website. You'll be able to find this change. It's been updated, so I just wanted to make you all aware of it. And obviously we're excited about our own athletes here and the progress that they're making in their season. So, continue to go Bears, and how about them Eagles? So, but that's all I have to say. So, thanks, everyone.
Okay. Could I have a motion to
So
adjourn? I have a motion by Mr. Galler, second by Mr. Clark. All in favor? Okay, we are adjourned, 5-minute break, and we will then go into our work session meeting. in that section. And then also offering that there would then be no public comment at the end of the meeting. Of course, the chair would have the responsibility to ensure the agenda is being followed, to maintain order, and for everyone to have their say. And also to bring the group back on topic if we waver off. Of course, we would evaluate and tweak the process. As Mr. O'Keefe said earlier, it's version 1. And so I'm just asking, how does this sound? And is it a starting point for us to try this?
Gotta start somewhere.
Yeah, I would try to do the shot, see how it goes, see if it doesn't go in a good way, we can adjust and adapt.
All right, we all okay?
It's almost
there any-
similar to do with the township meetings that I go, it's like, after you tell the people talk and then carry on from there.
Are there any rules on engagement back to the community at that point? So if somebody comes after the session and they answer a question, is it,
I think we need to answer
I
it.
think we need to be able to.
Yeah.
Or get back with an answer. Like,
Or if we don't know,
answers,
get back.
Yeah,
We
if we-
shouldn't make things up
yeah.
just to get to
No.
appease somebody. We need to come back with the right information.
Yeah.
And again, it's okay to say, let me get back to you.
Yeah, it's okay to say, I don't know.
Thank you.
All right, so I will begin then. Is there any public comment this evening from our community? Okay.
There's a better.
Good start.
Yeah, good start. All right, then we will begin. Item number 1 is finance. And Tammy, you have a long one.
Good evening, everyone. The first item, during our last construction project meeting, it was discussed that if there was an emergency on site during the construction and a decision needed to be made immediately that had a dollar amount attached to it, that Dr. Conrad should have that authority to approve it on the spot. So we would need to decide on a dollar amount. It was suggested by CHA/Dewey, our engineer, that it's normal for $100,000 to be the authorized amount for the superintendent to approve on the spot. So some feedback from the board, how you feel. This would go on the next agenda for official board approval, but I want to kind of get your thoughts before I put something on there for board approval.
I can let everyone know that at MCTI during the building project that is going on right now, we have also approved the same type of agreement, although not at the $100,000 because the project is not as large as what we are dealing with here at Pleasant Valley. For some reason, and maybe Dr. Conrad, you can help me with this, I think it was 40,000 maybe in MCTI, or
That sounds 30 or 40.
yeah, I can't really recall the dollar amount we gave Dr. Verget up to, but of course he would then communicate with the whole JOC that this occurred, through an email process.
When they hit the rock, right, things like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
they were
when we
having
had to do that, yeah,
Yeah.
because some of them were interesting, but it is being done, like I said. So I just wanted to throw that out there. So you don't want to hold, some of these things could hold the project up if it needed to wait for board approval, so, but.
And just to be clear, I'm not looking for unilateral authority.
Yeah.
So I don't want that. But as something comes up and, we're speaking with the engineers and, we're talking with Tammy and with Randy, I want to make sure that, if on the fly, I was to communicate that this is what the challenge that we're running up against, would you, just to let you know, this is how much it's going to cost. I think that's what we're looking for, a dollar amount authorization, because again, to Mrs. Kresge's point, if we have to wait, for example, it happened tomorrow, we're waiting, 9 more business days, it's going to delay and delay. And there are going to be some probably unforeseen things with the scope of the project that we're doing. So it just, we were trying to understand, what does this board feel comfortable with that authority being? And then obviously making sure that you get the information to move things along.
I guess my question is like, if this problem occurred, would you then let Mrs. Gregg know, and she would contact us all by email or text or something like that, say, hey, this is what we're running into, what are your thoughts, like she's done with other things, and then just get back to you and say, okay, go for it. I mean, is that something that's doable?
I mean, what's been happening at MCTI was that if an issue comes up, Dennis sends it out to the JOC, and says, this change order is now gonna cost $15,000. I just wanted to let you know, and then they go ahead and move forward with it, because sometimes, with different people and engineers that they're coming in, they might not be scheduled for another couple of days, so we're trying to make within, I'd say, an hour to 2 hours, sometimes, not all the time. I mean, certainly if we have some days to sit on it, but it would help to move things along without being delayed. And I actually will say, I believe part of the reason MCTI is on a good timeline and a good schedule is because as 3 or 4 of these, emails have popped up and change orders and expenditures have increased, there's just been the notion that we're gonna continue to move the momentum along, so.
I guess that's what I'm saying. You said 3 or 4 times, so 3 or 4 times at $100,000. I mean, not that they would be that, but like we had 4 times that we're gonna get $400,000 out the door. I think that's gonna be quite an eye opener for a lot of people.
That was kind of my question too, like, so is it $100,000 up to, and you hit that threshold?
That would be the maximum, so
So he can't, so I guess he can't do $100,000 in the next, oh, here's another one, another $100,000, another.
So now we're saying for each item, I see what you're saying.
it would be for each item.
Yeah.
Each emergency item. And just to give you a little bit of background how this would work, when there's a change order, the change order comes in from the contractor that's on site. It has to go through the architect and the engineer to be approved and signed. Then it comes to me, then it goes to Randy. He has to sign off on it. Then it comes to me and I have to sign off on it. And then it has to go to Dr. Conrad and he has to sign off on it. Then it comes to the board for you to board approve. So there's a lot of TikToks for a change order to happen. So this is, the example I believe that they gave in our meeting was, what if they hit a water line or something and there's waters coming up through the floor? And they need to get that taken care of immediately. Randy's gonna be the one that's in the building.
It's 2 weeks.
And Randy's gonna say, yeah, fix that, but he's gonna call Dr. Conrad and he's gonna say, we need to fix this right now, but it's gonna be another $20,000. That's what we're asking for. And just to pick an amount, it doesn't have to be 100,000. It could be whatever the board is comfortable with. But I believe that the size of this project, 100,000 is not an unreasonable amount to authorize that.
I think it's gonna be a
Okay,
necessity,
let me just speak for a minute.
In the floor.
She's correct. That most of these would occur when you're digging in the ground, kind of problems. And if it's in the situation where it affects, let's say you're in school and you hit a water line or electric line or the gas, some other sewage line, for example. And do we want to wait, 4 or 5 days, a week to get
Wouldn't that be
approval?
insurance too?
Or is it something that if we don't solve it, we end up with a greater expense because we waited? So I think it's reasonable to expect that this is probably gonna happen a couple of times, because we know there's a couple things that we don't know today about things that were done 50, 60 years ago. And I'm sure we're gonna encounter some of that. So we need to have some sort of a mechanism, and I don't anticipate that we're gonna be seeing the kind of thing where we took a bigger problem and we broke it down into 3 or 4 small parts. That's not what we're looking at here. We're looking at trying to solve something which we're kind of in a crisis mode, and by not acting quickly will be more expensive than taking action appropriately.
What's that dollar value to you?
I'm okay somewhere between 50 and 100. And I'm not gonna try to drive you in the right direction, but when you're talking 100 million, well, not in this case, 87 million, I guess now. $87 million project, 100,000
This
is,
is small.
it's not small change, but proportionally it's small, okay? So I'd say somewhere in the 50 to 100, yeah, whatever the board feels comfortable with. I'm not gonna try to drive the answer.
I'm more worried about the lead time in fixing some of these emergency problems on some of the equipment coming in, so waiting for board approval, especially when you're doing a project that's cyclical like this, where you have timeframes to meet, this is absolutely a necessity, probably something we should have talked about a long time ago. That's water under the bridge, or whatever the saying is. I think $100,000 is very reasonable for something like this.
Are we all
I
right?
agree with that, yeah.
With a courtesy of
Of being notified.
of being notified, the
Yes.
board being notified immediately.
We okay with that then? Okay,
I'll put that on for the next
Okay.
board meeting for official board approval.
okay.
Moving on to item B, attached to the cap reserve, the 2018, 2023 bond, and the 2024 bond for January. The capital reserve account has an available balance of $15,836,978.47 at January 31st. As you'll see on the reports, the board approved construction contracts back in December when we did the bid openings. We had discussed in previous board meetings that approximately $8.5 million for for the alternates in the bids would be allocated to the capital reserve account. So those alternates did not come to $8.5 million, it was much less. So they have been allocated now since the board approved it, and we have the final numbers. The team room addition of $3,181,700. The gym room, bleachers, divider curtains, scoreboards, and volleyball accessories, $1,574,900. Paving in the parking lot, $492,000. Wire mold and specialty lining, $39,000, and nobody better ask me what wire mold is, because I don't know. And Randy laughed. Earthwork, sod, rekeying hardware, and brick flashing, $846,500.
Wire mold is just like Raceway, it's like usually like something stick on and run the wires through and just slap on, so it looks pretty, so it's not like wires hanging on the.
Thank you.
There you go.
The projects that are listed are the alternates, and they have been allocated to the gas reserve account.
I just have a question with, I understand what we have up there. Is there any way we could put down the dates when you're done? Because when I was looking, I'm like, okay, why do we need to do the field? But then I realized that capital done for the field replacement was something that was already done, correct?
Correct, and the reason that it's carried on here is
But I mean, it
because
doesn't have the, like I said, wouldn't it be supposed to have the date that this was done at this?
I can go back and find dates.
Yeah, only because things that then we,
The reason we have to carry those because this was.
no, I
this
understand
was
what
money
you're, I
we
just don't know
borrowed.
what date they were. Because when I first looked at it again, I forgot, and I was thinking, okay, this is new and that, no, you said it once before, it's passed and carried over, but we can see when it was done.
Yeah, okay, I'll go back and see if I can find the dates for those.
Thank you.
Two other projects that are added to cap reserve was the PVE carpet replacement estimate of $50,000. This project's currently out to bid, so we'll have a better price on this. The bid opening is 2 Mondays from now. The rekeying has been added to this as well, which was board approved at our last board meeting. The total cost for this project was around $350,000, but the district did receive a grant for Chief Miller's efforts with the PCCD grant and Mr. Van Voorhees. We received a grant for $183,539, so the other $166 is allocated to the cap reserve. The 2018 bond account has an available balance of $0 now. And the reason it has an available balance of $0 is because I've allocated the additional construction costs to what was left in this bond. The 2023 bond account also has an available balance of $0. Again, because I've allocated the high school renovation costs to this bond of board approved contracts. In the 2023 bond spreadsheet, you'll notice there are change orders in the second column of $1 million. And that is for the facility improvement grant that we got. So there was $1 million taken off of that contract. And the $264,987, that's the environmental grant that we received. So it lowers those two contract prices by those grant amounts. Allocations that are remaining that do not appear on these bond reports, we still have 32 million for the general contractor to allocate, and we have 4.9 million for the mechanical contract that has to be allocated yet, and 4.7 million in contingency funds, and contingency is if we would need it. So that would be part of our next bond issue. I'm gonna present, there's 2 or 3 options for the next bond, I'm gonna present them in March. And then the board's gonna have a month so they can think about it. Ally from Raymond James is gonna come in April, and she's going to explain in better detail the best way for us to go. I'll give you a recommendation in March. You can think about it, and then Ally will come in April, and then you can vote on it.
I know I'm asking a crystal ball question, but has Ally said anything about rates?
She has. The rates are, they're predicting the rates are gonna hold fairly steady.
Oh, okay, all right, okay, thank you. Yeah, I just was like, it's so volatile out there that, okay, all right, that's good news.
Yeah, I talked to her a couple of times. The projection is for us to take this next bond in June. Originally, we weren't gonna take it till September. But I think our recommendation is gonna be to take it in June. And there'll be a reason why, and it'll have to do with being able to invest a little bit better.
Okay, all right, okay, thank you.
Anybody else have any other questions on these reports?
Just one other question, are we still looking for other grants that possibly can pop up?
Yes, under the governor's budget for 25-26, the facility improvement grant is supposed to come again. I believe it's 111 million is what he has budgeted, but it's unclear.
Right,
They're
but we're
going
still
to-
looking at that possibility.
Oh, yeah, any grant that comes out, we'll apply for it.
Thank you.
Item C then, are the FTEP reports for October, November, and December. I'll give you the balance at December. That's 5,309,156.54. This is equivalent to 6 months of reserve. We are required to hold 4 months of reserve, so we're in good standing with that. Does anybody have any questions?
So we keep it at 6, we're able to keep it at 6. We have to take out after 6. Wasn't there something you did with the threshold where once it gets up so far, we have to come back?
No, we have to keep it above the 4 months, but we're not required to take anything out if we get above. I know in the past, funding holidays have been taken.
Right.
At what?
You run the risk of when you take a funding holiday, say you take it in February, you run the risk of in March, you end up with catastrophic.
Right.
Now you didn't pay in that month and you had a catastrophic claim and now you're below the reserves.
Tammy, in the past, do you recall at what level we were at when we took a funding holiday?
January, February of 21 is the last time a funding holiday. It was after 2 months were taken in a row.
Ooh, okay. But do you recall what level we were at when we did that?
I can go back and look.
I'd just be curious to know.
If to take 2, we
Yeah,
had to have about 7 or 8 months in there to take it, because you can't just take it.
I know.
The IU board has to approve it.
Right.
And then you guys have to approve it.
Right. Mhm.
So it's not, the business manager just can't decide not to
I
pay
know.
it that month.
Right. Mhm. I just wondered at what level we were at when we took the
Yeah,
last
I
time.
can go back and look, but my guess would be 7 or 8 months.
Okay, I'd be curious to know.
This is it.
This is probably a really dumb question. Can you please explain to me what a funding holiday is?
So every month we pay our premium for every person that's on our health insurance. We pay, a certain amount. And we pay that every month. But because we're in the consortium, if you have more than 4 months in your fund reserve, you don't have to pay it that month. If you choose not
That's called a funding holiday,
Not paid,
your monthly.
because you're up here.
It's like your monthly bill, you wouldn't pay it.
So
You could just not
Your
pay it.
electric bill.
Correct,
Electric
and our-
bill, you pay too much above it.
Ours is just slightly under $1 million a month is what we pay. So let's say I came in and I got board approval for March, you would see that $5 million reserve next month now will be $4 million.
So we are paying for it one way or another.
Yeah.
Right, like, we're not just not paying.
Which would be awesome.
So we're just,
Yeah,
Until it uses it, then
I'm confused, right? Again, everybody-
It'll come out of our fund balance in the consortium.
What you might
Okay.
explain is why it's to our advantage to not have too much in there. You know, just pay it when we have to.
Because it's more money
Because
here
we
in the
keep the money and
district.
we collect the interest on it.
Right, it's more money here in the district if we don't let it accumulate there. Any other questions? The next item I have is the audit results for the 23-24 audit. So I want to start off by saying that the 23-24 audit, we've had 0 findings.
Woo-hoo.
This is the 3rd year in a row.
Very good.
Big thanks to the business office ladies, they're wonderful, they do a really great job. Okay, so the general fund financial statement through June 30th, 2024. Our revenues were 119 million, our expenses were 117 million. Our revenue exceeded expenses by 1.2 million. Revenue was over budgeted by 14,426,000, and expenditures were over budgeted by 13,199,000. The general fund balance was increased by 1.2 million, which now makes it 31,337,686. These are just the highlights. I'm going to get into more detail moving forward. So the revenue part. The revenue was 14 million over budget, and this breaks it down a little bit. So on the local level, 5.9 million over budget, and these are the reasons why. Real estate, we collected $69,000 more than we had budgeted. Earned income tax was $1 million more than budgeted. Transfer tax, $823,000 more. Delinquent real estate and earned income delinquents, it's $823,000. Interest, this was a big piece of it. Interest was 3.1 million. Predicted interest rates, last year was a good year for interest, so we got more than what was budgeted. And then miscellaneous, 622,000.
Tammy, I know it's probably a hard number to budget too, the earned income tax.
The earned income tax is pretty consistent from year to year.
Okay, so the million extra?
The million, so that would be increases in salaries,
Okay.
not here at the district with
Our community,
That's an
That's
indication
interesting.
that people in our community
Yeah.
are making more money.
money, that's just where I was going. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what that
That's
indicates.
just what I was thinking, okay.
On the state level, the basic ed and special ed, we received $749,000 more. And if you remember, when I presented the final budget last year, the governor's budget wasn't finalized, so I had used the year before's numbers. And then we got that after our budget was passed. Transportation was $15,000 more. Mental health and safety grants, $200,000. Ready to Learn, $2.5 million, which we did not have any verification until after the governor's budget was passed that we were actually getting that. And Peacer's reimbursement, $1 million. On the federal level, another big chunk of that was ESSER, 3.7 million. Access reimbursement was a little short, 140,000 from what was budgeted. The title grants, 58,000. We did not get these actual amounts until much later last year. They did go up. Actually, it was kind of up on one, down on another. But overall, between the 4 grants, it was $58,000 more. And then other, 371,000. For the expenditure analysis, on instruction, we were underspent by 440,000. In support, we were underspent by 2.2 million. And other, which the majority of this is transfers and ESSER money, we were overspent by 15,882,000.
How are we underspent?
Well, so if you take the revenue that we were over revenue by 14 million, and we were overspent in expenditures by 13 million. Majority of that was, grant money between Ready to Learn and ESSER. They're not budgeted for.
Right.
So if you take the overspent, the over-received in revenue and the overspent in expenses, it's just grant money coming in and grant expenses going right back out. And they weren't budgeted for because we didn't know what we were getting.
Yeah, right, we can't budget for them.
So at the end of the day, the budget was on target. Our fund balance. So our fund balance, our committed and assigned fund balance is 26,488,16. That's comprised of future capital needs of 17.8 million and budget stabilization of 8.6 million. Our unassigned fund balance is 4.7 million. And then on our cap reserve side, our fund balance is a total of 55,842,254. 52.9 million is restricted to capital projects and 2.8 million is restricted to debt obligation. And just for fun, if you take the reports in item B, the 32 million from the cash from the bonds and the 8 million from cap reserve that was allocated and the 15 million that's left over, you come up with the 52 million. That's where that fits. So it's not like we have $52 million in our reserve that we're just hoarding. That 52 million is allocated to something already. It's the bonds are in there. It's the high school projects, all of the cap reserve projects. Just to kind of clear that up. Future capital needs of the 17 million. That part of the money is allocated. It's not allocated yet, but it's the intention for that money is for the other buildings to do the the project improvements in the other buildings without having to borrow again. That might be, food service. So the food service analysis from the audit, the revenues for 23-24 were 3 million. The expenditures were 2.4 million. The fiscal year profit for last year was $602,000.
Woo-hoo. That's
Our net
amazing.
position at July 1st, 23 was a negative 996, and our net position at June 30th, 2024 is a negative 393,000. I just want to note that on 7/1/22, our net position in food service was a loss of $1.4 million. In 2 years, the deficit has decreased by $1 million.
So next year she wiped out.
That should be on the positive side next year when I'm up here.
That is wonderful news.
It is wonderful news. Does anybody have any questions? That's all I have for the audit. Does anybody have any questions on the audit? I'm sure everybody read all 150 pages of that.
115, yes, I did. I just was on there, is there a place where it states what we pay, like say expenditures? Is there a certain place where it says what we pay for legal fees? Such as special, I know we have a lot of special ed money here.
It's not in the audit specifically. It's not.
But that would be something like you get from you.
Yes.
Okay. That's it, I don't want to quote that, just hoping.
I can email that to Dr. Conrad and we can share that with the whole board. Does anybody else have questions about the audit? Okay, let's move on. The next thing I have is the 24-25 budget status. This one's for the general fund. More numbers, I'm sure you're all good. So at January 31st, 2025, we have our budgeted revenue was 111,576,444. At January 31st, we have collected $85,431,745, which is about 76% of our revenue that we budgeted, we have collected so far. Expenditures budgeted, 111,576,444. We've expended 54,378,520, so we've expended about 50% of our expenses at January 31st. So we have 84 mil, I'm sorry, it's comparable to last year. In the last column is last year at this time. We collected 84 million, so the revenue was comparable. We're a little far ahead on the expenses. So I did go back and look at that to see what it was. This year we had a third pay in January compared to last year we only had 2. So that's the difference between them. And that's salary, taxes, PSERS, all of that. Does anybody have any questions on the general fund balance status at this time? The next one I have is the food service budget status at January 31st. So far this year, we've collected $1.2 million in revenue, and we've expended $1.1 million in expenditures. You see it's broken down between Whitson's expenditures, our labor and fringe, and other. So at this point, we're at $110,000 profit. The projection for this year is $3 million in revenue, $2.6 million in expenses, and a $329,000 profit. For the food service budget, at this point in time, we're required by the Department of Food and Nutrition. We either have to start our 3rd-year renewal of the contract with Whitson's, or if we're not happy, we have to go out for RFP. So we are in the 3rd year. I'm happy with Whitson's. This shows that we're still on the right track with them. So I need to start the application process for the 3rd year renewal. I don't want to start that application if it's a lot of work. If the board is not happy with Whitson's, or if they're interested in going out for RFP.
Still staying with our staff, I think it's, we're still staying very close.
I am happy with Whitson's.
I think it's good.
Yeah.
I want more chocolate.
I want more tater tots.
I do have one question. Looking on 31st January, we got 1.3, and you say we're gonna get 1.7 in the next 4 months.
Correct. Well,
Do we
it's
normally
more
get a
than-
higher
this number-
participation in the spring?
this number doesn't include January's revenue. Even though it says January, we can't bill January until the 1st week of February. So we haven't received.
Oh, so
January's
that's
revenue.
really December.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
The expenses, however, are through January. The revenue is not.
Okay.
Okay.
So Tammy, and I don't know the numbers, but probably around this time last year, you were here with projections of how much profit we might, and I don't remember exactly, but it certainly wasn't the 600,000.
It was not. It was just around 300,000.
I'll say 300.
Okay, I didn't remember. So what contributed to that?
A big portion of what contributed to that is we get reimbursement from the state for PSERS and for FICA, Social Security that we pay in.
Mhm.
So part of what we get in that reimbursement belongs to, from our food service.
People.
It doesn't get deposited into the food service account, it gets deposited into the general fund account. When the auditors come, they do an adjustment, they do a calculation based on food service employees. So some of that reimbursement goes over to them. So it's roughly between $200,000 to $230,000 of revenue that's not recorded throughout the year. It gets recorded at the end during the audit.
Okay, so that would happen again.
It would, but I don't include it when I do the projection.
Okay, so that's what my question. Okay,
That
so
is not included.
that
in
is not
300.
included in that 300 again.
Just want to give you a happy surprise.
I know, I'm just trying,
It makes me look really good.
trying to understand it. So that's, okay.
So the next steps will be I'll work with Whitson's to get the contract done, and then it goes to the state. The state has to approve it. Once they approve it, then it comes to you to officially approve it as the board.
I'm sorry, so we're in, because we voted in 2023, summer of 2023.
We'll be going into year 3 of a 5-year contract. But the state requires you to renew the contract every year.
So yeah, we're going into year 3
And
this summer.
this is year 2 we're in.
Correct.
Yes. And we voted in
So
the summer of 23.
So in March of 28, we're gonna have to go do an RFP. We don't have a choice then.
Because of the 5 years.
Correct.
Mhm.
We'll have to do an RFP.
And then that would be for extending it for potentially another 5 years with an annual,
Unless they change the rules by then, but yes.
yeah,
5
okay,
years.
all right. That's what.
Yes, an RFP is good for 5 years with Winston's, but under the state rules, we still have to renew the contract every year because
Yeah.
if we don't like this, we
We
can
can
get
We can
out.
get
Yeah,
out.
you're
We're
right,
gonna have an
absolutely.
RFP again.
It's nice to have that.
Yeah, okay.
So we were never tied to this for the entire 5 years.
Yeah.
It's good.
It's working out really well.
But it is working out well.
And then Tammy, when would we put on the agenda for us to
The 1
continue?
year.
For the 1 year? Would that come up?
We can't even submit it to the state
Until-
until after April 1st. So Corey from Winston's and I
Okay.
will work on that.
So maybe by like
between now
May,
and
we can,
April.
yeah. 'Cause it-
I think I did it with the proposed budget last year, if I remember correctly, in May.
Okay,
I think I did.
so it'll be reflected as a future expenditure. Okay, thanks.
Yes, sure.
Meal totals, cafeteria meal totals.
Oh, okay, so the food service numbers for January. Our January breakfast meals were 19,445. Our lunch meals were 48,727. Our after-school snacks were 10,748. And our à la carte sales were 24,152.25. And my last item for tonight, item H, the Whitson's monthly newsletter for December is attached for your review. I just wanted to highlight one thing that's in the newsletter. Chef Paul teaches Chefology, and this, in December, he did with our PBI students, he taught them how to make fruit parfaits, yogurt parfaits for lunch. He did it in a 2-part series, so I thought that was kind of cool.
Mhm.
So I wanted to highlight that. And that is all I have tonight. Anybody have any questions?
We have more after-school districts now.
After school?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Yeah.
That increased by like
This
Yeah,
one.
so
like
You're right.
6,000 snacks that increased by
Amazing.
Yeah.
November to December.
I saw that. Yeah. All right, at this time, is there any public comment on that section, on the finance section? Questions? Okay. Moving on to operations. Nothing? Okay, moving on, transportation. I hear head shaking. All right, we're gonna skip the 5-minute break and we're gonna go to technology.
Sure. All right. I'll hop up just to make it easier. Now, you can all hate me. First of all, good to see you, everyone. Thank you, board of directors, for having me. This presentation is approximately 30 slides. That's not an exaggeration. Now, here's the good news about it. I have zero intent of taking a lot of time on any of them. After the meeting, if you want to know more information about any individual topic, though, that I covered today, I will share the presentation with you, and you'll be able to dig deeper and read a little bit more about it, okay? Last time we were up, there was a proposal to have Gemini, the pro version, basically bought for some of our faculty members. Board of directors asked some questions about, we need a little more information about what it actually do. So I put this presentation together to try to answer some of those questions and hopefully flesh out the benefits of us actually getting this for our district. And also provide you enough information that you can make an informed decision, as you should. So just really quick, the whole purpose of Gemini is to kind of hit these points. And primarily, we know that one of the biggest issues we have right now in education is that our teachers are, as they say, overworked. They don't have enough time to accomplish the tasks that are demanded of them. Gemini would be a way to actually pull some of that back and make their jobs more efficient and possibly even a little bit more effective. We'll talk about how, which was actually the question of the board as we move forward. There's a lot of words on this slide. It doesn't just help teachers, it can actually help all aspects of our organization. So again, as we get through this, I'll show you a little bit more about how. There are a section for students as well. Our district's not pursuing necessarily opening up AI to students right now. However, we do know that approximately 20% of our students, just based on statistics, are likely using AI in their assignments already, just not through Pleasant Valley's technology. So I threw this on here just to kind of show you the difference between the Gemini app, which is free, right? Right now, if you log onto your cell phone or go onto your computer at home, you can use the Gemini app. We're actually proposing getting something called Gemini for Workspace, which is a paid version of Gemini. Basically, the major benefits is it actually attaches to our Google Suite. So we already pay for an enhanced form of Google for our employees. It's what we use for Google Classroom, Google Drive, Google Sheets, Gmail. All of those are Google applications. And Gemini would actually attach and bolster up every single aspect of our Google Suite. It also has better encrypting and encoding and protections for our privacy data if you get the paid version.
Sorry, Jason, is there only one level of the paid version?
There's actually two different levels.
Okay.
The first level, and I'd have to get you the exact quotes, there is a relatively substantial difference in price. The paid version, the first one actually has a usage limit. So basically, if you're an employee in the district, I don't remember the exact numbers, it's like you can use it 100 times, but then it shuts off. Whereas the premium version is an unlimited amount.
Okay.
And you have to remember that every time you use it, it would be anytime you prompt Gemini to do something. So even if you're using it to help you with Google Sheets, it might take you 5 prompts to actually get it to do what you're trying to get it to do. As you're learning it especially, that would be 5 hits. So I would be seeking probably the premium version if we're looking at a whole annual subscription to make sure our teachers aren't limited in usage.
That usage monthly or daily?
Again, I would have to look at the terms of the actual program. And if we're interested in that, I'll get you the exact details of that when it actually would be back on the agenda for a proposal. So this is just a real basic, what is Gemini? I already covered that, but I wanted to include it on here just in case you had more questions. And part of this whole process is to, as you know, our policy was accepted in November. Part of that policy, and I believe was actually Mr. Yazinski that asked about how are we training our faculty members? That's part of our policy. Tomorrow, I'll actually be going to the middle school personally and also the high school to speak with our secondary faculty and present on how they can start utilizing Gemini, what it looks like. Also what it looks like for our students and the implications of the policy that was approved. So this is part of that presentation. It's going to teach our faculty members how to write good prompts and actually use it in a good way. Again, one of the biggest things is that I look at Gemini as being a starting point. If you have to write a letter, if you have to do something like that, it's a very quick way to get a base template in a lot of different ways, which again, I talked about efficiency and time. That's exactly what we're creating for people. They can spend less time doing some of the mundane tasks that they have to do. They might spend a half hour writing a lesson plan. This can cut that time down to about 5 minutes if they know what they're doing. It does not take away the teacher's independent thought. It does not change anything about them professionally. It just provides them a starting point.
Does it reach our lesson template that we're trying to go into?
If we do a lesson template, what this would do is you could actually have it create sections of that template for you. More importantly, it's kind of a kickoff point. Again, I'll show you a little bit more about that and it'll probably help you understand it. So it can be used in a whole different way. So in this specific example, it's actually being used for an educational leader and it creates an alumni outreach template. So you could basically, as a principal, say, hey, I want to reach out to my alumni and get them back involved. What's the best way to do that? Can I get a template set up? You type it into Gemini, it'll give you a framework. And the better your prompt is, if you say, I'm an administrator at Pleasant Valley High School, I want to create an outreach for this specific thing. It might be homecoming. I want it to include these dates and times. I want to have it have interactive feedback with our community. It'll create a very strong draft for you to actually move forward with. And again, it'll do it very quickly. When we talk about educators, and again, we're going to be talking about this with faculty members as well, there's ways that you can actually use it to help you differentiate your lesson plans. Let's say you're a teacher, you have this great idea in your head about teaching this lesson, or you know you have to teach this skill or this content area. You can type it into Gemini and say, hey, how can I differentiate this? I have a student who's at a lower Lexile level, or I have a student who has these special STIs, and it will give you suggestions on how you can modify that lesson plan. The professional still needs to do the final work. Let's be clear, this is not taking over the entire responsibility, but it will help provide them ideas without them having to sit there and make that third cup of tea at night to try and figure out what they're doing. Generating quizzes. This is actually one of the best ways I've seen it. You can actually take your entire unit plans, plug into Gemini and say, generate a quiz on this content. Change the depth of knowledge for question 3. And Gemini, what it does is basically pulls the internet, pulls all these different resources together. Instead of reinventing the wheel, it starts pulling from different school districts and different templates that are already created. It pulls from the state standards, so it makes sure they're aligned, and it'll help generate a quiz. So if you need to create a 10-question quiz on grade 9, you can have it start to formulate that template for you, right? Again, the teacher needs to be the final actor here, but it'll give you a start.
Jason, let me ask you a question.
Go ahead.
If you were to.
No, go ahead.
So I'm thinking about, we've talked a lot about common formative assessments, right?
Yes.
And I know working on, as with my departments in previous roles, it's always a challenge of getting, maybe 5 or 6 teachers in this particular content area, let's say Algebra 1, for example, to find time to meet first, right? To then go through the curriculum and then to kind of take either something that's not there to create it or to modify something that, they're unaware of. So what you're saying is that this could essentially help to shave off time because you could still get the end product of common formative assessments, which then would afford our teachers to be able to compare how the kids are doing. Again, not like a carrot and stick mentality. It's just, hey, let's look at our data. Maybe is there something, a resource that you used that the kids maybe understand it a different way rather than this. But you're saying at the end of the day, if you put in the right, criteria, we can get that group of 5 or 6 teachers to say, hey, here's a great common assessment. So what I'm getting at is it takes a lot less time to do a very daunting task that we all have participated in. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly.
Because that's kind of mind blowing to me, honestly.
That is exactly what I'm saying. And I'll go a step further. You can literally highlight or tell Gemini what specific Pennsylvania standard you're trying to hit.
Fantastic.
And it will also align those questions to that standard. While AI is not perfect, I'll be the first person to admit this, right? There are issues with AI where it can produce hallucinations or possibly generate some biases. It gives you a very, very strong kickoff point. And we all know that a lot of times when you're meeting as a department, half the trouble is just starting to get the pen on paper. So if you can start with hey, let's plug it into Gemini, it's going to generate 10 questions for us. Now we can review these questions as the department, change the questions.
You're not creating those questions. You're
starting from nothing.
That's great.
What about the format?
The format you can change.
So I'm just saying, so you're given 10 quiz, maybe you want 5 multiple choice, 5 true, but that's something they would have.
You tell it. You can literally type to Gemini, I want the first 5 questions to be multiple choice. I want the last 5 questions to be short answer, and I want one essay question that is comparing and contrasting authors.
How much time would that have saved us?
Well, that's
I know.
But
Or I want them to random, here's the 10 questions, I want you to shuffle them around.
Yeah,
like-
sure.
And let's go a step further when we're talking about this. Now, if we're looking at our district, what we already have, we can take that as a base template. We can then plug those questions into Performance Matters, right? And now our school district that has common assessments that were also partially generated with the use of AI. Again, they're still the teacher's questions, right? We can plug that into Performance Matters, and now we can actually track that in live time and start comparing how that's working with standards. So it's for me, it's all about helping our teachers become more efficient and effective. It's not replacing them. It's not taking their academic integrity. It's not taking their independence as a teacher. It's just helping them kick off ideas.
I have a question.
So far, so
Can you create in Gemini prompts that all teachers can access? So for instance, does every teacher have to generate a unique prompt for what they're trying to accomplish? Or is there a jumping point? Like, hey, there's a shared thing where I need to create a lesson plan. And so any teacher can kind of get like a basic outline of what they're looking for and then kind of adapt to their needs. Is there something that you can create like a repository, a central repository, or do they all have to generate that themselves every time individually?
I think we could do that as a district, quite honestly. I already have a tool
platform.
technology set up.
Definitely.
One of the things that we can do if we choose to go with
I
this as a
think so.
resource is we could actually start plugging little short tidbits on that Google Classroom to say, hey, if you're generating a lesson plan, start with this prompt. It'll help standardize it. We could also do something where, again, we're looking at having more collaborative time for our teachers and more department time and more team time. Especially, again, primarily, we're looking at this, the secondary level, especially to start, because when you're looking at complexity of lesson plans and how they're generated and what they actually are, it's a little bit more conducive to that level right now. But I do think that to kind of go back to what you're saying, Rob, I think we can actually have it set up where we can provide this kind of stuff. The program itself may not, like, using this template from Pleasant Valley, like, it's not gonna remember that as a thing. But if we give it the right information up front, and again, it goes back to that first question of the training tomorrow, we're gonna be talking about how do you create good prompts. We're gonna have.
Right, it's garbage in, garbage out. That's why I know there's other, have we looked at other potential AI things? Like, I know there's like School Magic, for instance, is a big one, which has built in, that's why I asked that question, like, I wanna create a lesson plan, and it kind of has like a button, more object-oriented, I guess.
Yes.
And less programming-ish, if that makes sense to you. I'm probably trying to say, but you're actually typing, like, I'm a big fan of AI, right? I use my kid, for instance, he has chemistry, right? I will tell it to generate me a high school level quiz on these objectives and give me an answer to it, because I don't know what I'm looking at. So I can get all right, now you take this quiz and see if it matches, right? Because I can kind of look it up. So I didn't actually do that, and I use it. That's how I do it. But I want to make sure that we're paying for something, but implementing it in a way that, you know, we're paying for something, but we're using it, right? Because I don't want it to be too hard and people then get turned off. Like, so I want it to be very easy. And I use it myself, and I understand when writing prompts, if you don't write that prompt right, you're not gonna get what you want. So, and just knowing that we have a wide variety of staff members' skill level with computers, right? I just don't want to be paying for a whole district license and then you have a small contingent of people that are really leveraging it. There will be people that obviously will.
Yeah.
I want to make sure we're maximizing that.
If you're okay with it, let me come back to that.
Okay.
Because that's gonna be like the last part of the
Okay,
plan
sorry,
kind of thing. No, it's a really good question though. Moving on, creating new material based on existing assessments. So you can also do it the reverse way. You can actually plug in the assessment and then you can create material to help you teach that assessment. So, you know, so while you're looking at generating quizzes off the material, if you have a common assessment that you know you have to get to by the end of the unit, and you have a new teacher that's not quite sure how to get there, this might actually help them generate a formulated plan to get there.
So you're kind of associated to like Wiggins, like understanding by design, backward planning.
Exactly.
Here's what we want to be able to master, and let's kind of map this out. Then, Jason, could I take that a step further to say, okay, well, we're going to like, focus on like binomials and trinomials, and let's say that we want to finish that up within 3 weeks. Right, because here's what the assessment is. Then not only does it focus in on the content, but then the pacing of the instruction, that would go to show growth in that particular, area that they should show knowledge of. Is that correct?
Yes, and you can also, again, doing that, if you're doing it correctly, you could even say, knowing that we're gonna have 3 days to cover this material, give me 3 differentiated activities that highlight different learning modes for students. Give me something that's hands-on, give me something that is verbal, give me something visual, give me something that's real life application.
Okay, so let me, sorry, I have a lot of questions.
That's okay.
So let me ask this a little bit let me take this a step further, right? So I have 18 kids in my class. I have 3 students that are struggling learners. 1 is identified with an IEP. Could I take, now what's generated as the pacing and say, how can I modify this for a student that is learning at a grade level behind? And would it give me or could you ask it for certain modifications or, maybe different prompts that help that student understand? Maybe the language and semantics are a little bit different. Like, could it get that granular?
It can.
Wow.
It can. It's all in how you're using your prompts and how you're choosing to keep, because every time it gives you a result, you can then ask it another prompt based on that result.
Okay.
So if you choose to, you can just keep on digging and digging and digging and digging. And every time you do that prompt, what it's actually doing is Google searching, if you will, this gigantic repository of things that are already out there, and then it compiles that information and makes it into something that's palatable. So imagine a large research paper, except you're not having to go through every single resource yourself, it's just compiling.
Because that's what we do now, we click through 15 links to finally get what we want, because we compile that as educators, but now you're saying you kind of can get it for us, which again, as I'm listening to you, I mean, it seems like one of the biggest benefits is the time saving that our teachers and staff don't have, and I'm there with them, because you have limited time to do what we need to do within our given time. But the question that I'm always asking is like, what can we do better? How do we collaborate? How do we take something and modify it to meet the students' needs? So I mean, that's pretty, I didn't know it could do, I knew it could do a lot, but that's kind of mind-blowing.
Maybe this is a really dumb question, but, you know, we're always telling our kids, our grandkids, you know, you can't believe everything that's out there on the internet. So how do we know that this information is correct information?
This is part of what's up to the educator. And one of the things that we're gonna be talking about is, how do you actually go back and make sure your information is correct? Our educators are professionals in their craft. They're professionals, they're knowledgeable about their content, right? So as they're pulling this information back, they've already created lesson plans for this skill and content. So they're gonna be able to vet this right away and be like, wow, this isn't quite hitting what I'm looking for. Or they're gonna go look and be like, oh no, this is actually hitting exactly what I wanted to hit. Additionally, if there's ever a question, they can still go the old school route of looking up, you know, what is the standard for this? You know, like, anytime a teacher does a project and they're creating a rubric, it's up to that educator to go back and ultimately compare that to the standards and say, does this really get what it's supposed to be doing? That piece of the process cannot be left out. What we're trying to make more efficient is the initial part of coming up with those ideas, writing those ideas down, trying to differentiate, coming up with all these different accommodations we have to do. Now we can take something that we start with and say, you know what, let's see what this can do for me, let's see where it starts. So I'm gonna keep going here, because there's a couple more questions I think is gonna help. I can create a lesson hook. This actually attaches straight to Google Classroom, which is awesome, because if a teacher is doing a lesson in Google Classroom, you can actually use the AI within Google Classroom to, again, start creating your own ideas. Syllabi, oh my gosh, one of the best things about AI has to be creating syllabi and rubrics. I kind of nerd out over this, because as a teacher, I used to hate creating rubrics. It's extremely difficult to actually create a meaningful rubric that is objective, right? Because I would write something down, I look at it and be like, wow, that is such a subjective column, I need to get rid of this. And you start over, and then you're like, wait a minute, why is my number 3 more rigorous than my number 4? I gotta start over again. This, you can do it, and again, because of the database, like some that are already out there, it does phenomenal work creating rubrics. So again, huge time saver. Quickly distilling what's important. So we talked about how you can use it to kind of get a kickoff point. This is kind of looking at it the other way. How can we actually analyze data? How can we look at things quickly by using it? Streamlined research process, I already talked about that. Right now, we can go on Google Scholar, pull up all kinds of articles, read all kinds of stuff, or you can type it in Gemini and it's gonna summarize stuff for you. It's gonna come up with the general trends of current research. Recap emails incidentally. One of my absolute favorite features when I was testing this personally is you have those people who send you those really long-winded emails.
I talk, I don't send a long email. Guys, like,
We
see
were
my
just,
emails.
we were just
I
talking
never send a
about-
long email.
When you pull this up, it'll actually recap the entire conversation in bullet points for you if you want to. So if you
I
have
think
long
I might
threads,
have
you
right
want
here
some.
in front of
I want
my
that.
book that he sent to us.
All right, sold. No, but if you have like 20 different response or different people talking, it'll actually summarize Jason said, Susan said, Johnny said. And it'll give you the summary and the highlights. And yes, it will write a draft to respond.
Jason, could you use that? I'm curious. So let's say I'm just thinking high school teacher is using a prompt. And so they email out a prompt. What's it?
Go to the training. Go to the training tomorrow.
Oh, I know, but instead of asking, I know, but just to hold it and go to the training.
Forget it.
Go ahead, if you want.
No, I'm just curious. But no, I forgot my train. I'll think about it tomorrow.
Next, here we go. You can ask questions about your Google Drive as well. So, one of the best ways to use it is if like on my email. Let's say I knew I had gotten an email from Dr. Conrad. I don't remember what the subject line was, but I knew what the content was kind of, and I really need to go back and reference this email. I can type in Gemini, hey, find the email from Dr. Conrad where he was talking about professional development. And it's smart enough to be able to search my email and find the correct one and pull it up. So I don't have to know the title. I don't have to do this. It is to a degree, but when you understand how ADAI is working in the algorithm, it's not as scary as you think. It's looking for keywords and it's looking for identifiable material. But again, when you're talking about time saving, it's there. Formulas and data analysis, I actually recently used this. I was working in a Google Sheet. We were doing a massive grade upload for PVBA. And I was trying to do something where I could figure out how I could upload grades or detect whether or not a student earned credit, which sounds really easy, but when you're talking about 2 quarters, you have to get the average, then you have to discover that it's a semester level course. So basically what you end up doing is a bunch of if-then statements. Was the student, like, is this a credit course or is it a half credit course? Did this student earn above a 65%? If yes, then give